Good evening. We have a quorum. Thank you all for coming and joining us this evening, and thank you to those who are viewing at home. I'll first just start with reading the notice. Town of Holliston, Fall Town Meeting, Commonwealth of Mass, Middlesex SS, Town of Holliston, to any constable of the Town of Holliston, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Holliston who are qualified to vote in town affairs to meet in the Holliston High School Auditorium, 370 Hollis Street, Holliston, Mass, Monday, October 16th, 2023, at 7 p.m. to act on the warrant and the articles. Given our hands and seal this 29th day of September, AD 2023, John Cronin, Chair, Christina Hine, Vice Chair of the Select Board, Ben Sparrow, Clerk. I have this 29th day of September 2023 posted. True copies are attested on and within the Town Hall, Public Library, Police Department, Senior Center, and on the town website as herein directed. Constable Barry Sims. True record attest Kevin Sanderson, Assistant Town Clerk. So we're in business. Yes? Prior to Article 1, motion is moved that the following non-residents and non-voting town officials, consultants to committees be allowed to speak during the course of this annual town meeting. Travis Ahern, Town Administrator; Kathleen Buckley, Assistant Town Administrator; Susan Kutzka, Superintendent of Schools; Joanne Menard, Assistant Superintendent of Schools; Daniel McLeod, HPS Director of Technology and Digital Learning; Christopher Mayo, Technology Director; Chris Hymans, Treasurer Collector; Gita Patel, Town Accountant; Kevin Rudden, Principal Assessor; Karen Sherman, Town Planner; Scott Moles, Health Director Agent; Brian Clapp, Conservation Agent; Mark Kafferline, Building Inspector; Matthew Stone, Police Chief; Brian Kelly, Assistant Fire Chief, EMS Director; Sean Reese, DPW Director; Lisa Borchetta, Senior Center Director; Mark Frank, Parks and Rec Director; Derek Wilson, Library Director; Jacqueline Weiner, Youth and Family Services Director; Jason Talaman, Town Council; Charlene Karen Gozi, Barry Dunn, Consultant; Ramses Azia, owner of Central Cafe; Rebecca Azia, daughter of owner of Central Cafe. Do we have a second to that motion? All those in favor say aye. So voted. Article 1. Oh, I'll strike that. Before we start, we're going to have some introductory comments by Mr. Shader from the FinCom, please. Is Ken here?
John.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Cronin then, Select Board. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Is this on? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Fall Town Meeting. I have a brief presentation of a few slides to introduce you to the warrant and some of the items that the Select Board's been working on, as well as some goals and associated information that is important for you to understand. First, this evening's warrant. It's brief. We have 19 articles before you this evening. This meeting is typically a cleanup meeting from our spring. We look at the fall as a much less business-oriented meeting, but yet necessary, especially on the capital side. So you'll see a lot of capital items in your warrant this evening. I'm not going to go through them. Mr. Shader will do that able job, and we'll complement that as the need arises this evening. This warrant features, with one exception, a unanimous approval of all our proposed warrant articles by the Finance Committee, which I think complements the work that our town administrator does to prepare both our board, the Finance Committee, for all the ins and outs of what we ask you for approval for. So I'd like to publicly thank Travis for all the hard work he did in preparing this this warrant. It was exceptional, as all his work is, and it makes our job and your job easier. Thank you. The warrant, as you could probably see, also includes a complex project involving Lowland Industrial Park. This evening, you're going to see two articles that affect that project. They're unrelated. The first is to fund an item through the warrant that the Select Board is asking for temporary signalization. The second is a non-binding citizens petition at the end of the warrant article that will advise the Select Board on access to the park. So please treat them as separate in your thoughts. They are related because they have something to do with the Lowland Industrial Park. One precedes the other, obviously. I can speak for my friends on the Select Board, including Ms. Tina Hine and Ben Sparrow, that we look forward to a productive discussion about these various articles this evening. Briefly, I wanted to go through the board's goals There's a lot of content on this slide, and on the next, I'll briefly go through them, but it's important that you know that each year our board forms, we reorganize and we state our goals for the coming fiscal year. This year, as you can see on this deck, we continue, hopefully, to create a handbook for those individuals joining boards and committees, finishing the Envision Future Holliston data results and create a handbook to share its mission statement, assist with the Holliston Fire EMS Department with the ongoing transition to an advanced life support model, update the current Finance Committee Excel document that Ben helped create, and look to streamline the budget process. We're looking to support the initiatives and priorities of the Holliston Youth and Family Services. We want to address traffic management within the community and coordinate with Safe Streets. We want to identify opportunities to expand the trails within the town. We want to promote economic development in the downtown area, consider traffic management pertaining to the proposed downtown sewer project, and obtain more knowledge surrounding that. We remain open to future initiatives and projects that may arise over the next fiscal year. We want to finish what we start. This body has approved several projects on behalf of the town, and under our stewardship, it is our goal to wrap them up and present them to you as finished products. We'll get into that in just a minute. We'd like to start the preparation needed to adopt the town manager for the town of Holliston. As you know, Mr. Ahern is a town administrator, in a role that has, in some circles, evolved into a town manager in many communities around us. Hopefully, you'll hear more about that presentation in the spring. And then finally, ending on a happy note, Holliston turns 300 in December of 2024. We've met several times with the organizers of Celebrate Holliston, who have been very busy trying to pull together a year-long event to recognize this great community, all that has come before us, and all we hoped it to be. So we're hopefully looking forward to joining them and celebrating with all of you throughout next year as the town turns 300. In addition to the projects, we have some new hires we wanted to announce. Several of them impactful, obviously. The Assistant Fire Chief, who was here tonight, Brian Kelly, was hired in August of 2023. Brian brings a tremendous amount of experience with him to help us launch the new EMS model that is so critical to our evolution into an ALS system, Advanced Life Support. We are bringing on a new part-time economic development coordinator. Melanie Hamblin will start October 23rd. This is a new position. Many of us feel that this investment will help us leverage Holliston's great opportunity for small businesses to thrive and join Holliston's community, and hoping to grow our commercial base. Our sustainability coordinator contract, the board early this evening approved Weston and Sampson to help us continue our good work in the area of helping Holliston remain on the forefront of green communities, climate action, and so forth. Finally, Zoe Moreau joined us in June as the Drug-Free Community Program Director within Youth and Family Services. So we've been busy adding new hires. Several projects I wish to update you on, as I mentioned, finish what we start. For the better part of 5 years, we've been involved in a project on Marshall Street to convert the old landfill into a solar project. We ran into several roadblocks, but I'm happy to say that mobilization of the ballasted system is starting in a couple of months, and with install scheduled for early 2024, weather permitting. The DPW building at Cross Street, which this body approved, we're looking for EPA and Mass DEP to work with us in the design engineering on getting the property tested and mitigated. We have to wait because that property is still in land court. We're beholden to the justice system in that. We've made several attempts to shake it loose. We will not give up on that, and we'll report back as we make progress on that. Green Street is near completion. If you folks haven't been down that area across from the park, Goodwill, you'll notice that there's a new parking area that is much needed for both businesses and the recreational use of our citizens. Our facility manager did a great job transitioning that property, which was a condemned property that the town bought and converted into this much-used, much-needed space. It'll be fitted out with EV station units very shortly as we wait Eversource. One item I cannot overstate enough, we use acronyms a lot, so I'm sorry, the REC conversion. That is our Regional Emergency Communications System. This is a project that our fire chief, our town administrator, and the board have actively pursued over the last several months as we've moved to this centralized model using the Holbrook REC, which is a regional professional emergency communication center. A lot of you folks may watch us week to week and know that staffing these communication centers has become a challenge for many small communities like ours. If you find somebody, you train them, inevitably they leave within a year or two to become a fire, police officer, or a civil servant, you start over again. Many communities are moving at the state's wish to these regional systems. We've interviewed and have signed an agreement with Holbrook to conduct our REC. That cutover is scheduled for January 1st, 2024. It is our expectation that should you dial 911 on that day, you will receive no less service than you do today. Our staff at both the Holliston Fire and Holliston Police have been prepared. It's taken a lot of planning to get there, but it's one item that we put a lot of work into, and we're pretty proud that we're looking at an improved cycle of regular professional emergency response, complemented by that ALS advanced life support system that is also getting underway. Looking ahead, as I mentioned, in the spring, we're hoping to have a town administrator special legislation before you, some language to consider. We're looking for updates on the evolving sewer district in downtown. This project is a much scaled down project from the sewer project that started about 25 years ago in this community. This is a defined area within downtown that we're looking to leverage federal funds with to provide for relief for a number of systems that are in difficult or aging shape. And the hope is that with this district, we could utilize the Woodland Street sewer plant that is under the stewardship of the town. It's located in the school system. And it will give us relief to allow these businesses and local residents the opportunity to join this loop and create a small sewer district. What that means in terms of economic development is too early to tell. We're very much in the planning stages, but it's a project that has great promise. I, for one, think that it will have a transformative effect over a period of years on Holliston's ability to grow commercial business. We are monitoring the Holliston High School building status. As folks may know, the Select Board signed off on a petition to the School Building Authority for a new high school. That, I believe, is the 5th year in a row. We commissioned the town facility manager to produce a facility assessment of this building, which many of you may know was built, I believe, was around 1969, 1970. Is that about right, Donnie? Something like that. And it went through a renovation in 2000. This building has several issues associated with educational programmatic challenges as well as condition. This report, which I think was important, has been shared with the School Building Authority. We'll await their determination on this latest application later this year. That concludes our presentation for you this evening. We really look forward to having a discussion about all the various articles. I'll turn the clicker over to my colleague, Mr. Shada.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Hi, everybody. You know why I'm here. Okay. Give you the update on the money. Okay, so we'll start. Let me figure out which direction I have to go here. There we go. Okay. Given the light financial matters to be discussed tonight, I tried to keep this very succinct so we could get to the matters at hand. When you look at where we are relative to where I talked about in May, the net state aid for Holliston came in slightly lower by $708. I hold myself personally accountable for being only off by less than $1,000. But anyway, there was no impact to the May budget that we passed, so there's nothing tonight that needs to be done to adjust for that. As referred to by my colleague on the Select Board, the override votes passed at town meeting and passed at the May town election. So what that means for the town is that as those projects proceed and when they are bonded out for the debt incurred in the projects, that's when it will show up on your tax bills. So don't be surprised when it does. It's just a matter of when the debt goes out to the market. And the other thing that happened since May is free cash was certified. That certification occurred last Friday, probably at 4:59 p.m. or thereabouts. So it was after our Finance Committee report went to press, so to speak, because according to our town's bylaws, we have to have it out at least 7 days in advance. So to align with that, we had to make a couple of recommendation changes that I'll get to in just a second. Okay. So, as I say every year in the fall, I just do a quick primer on what free cash is, because that's really what's driving a lot of what we're doing tonight. It's unexpended monies from the prior fiscal year, meaning budgets that were appropriated and not fully spent. It's local receipts, where we have excise taxes, fees, et cetera, from the prior year that are above our estimates or below our estimates, depending on how good our estimates are. And then there are unanticipated and one-time revenue items, things like settlements, which you see on the warrant tonight in the articles about the opioid settlement. That's a good example of something that flows through to free cash. That was this multi-state settlement that the town gets some money from. Good financial practice says you always bias, so you end up with about 3 to 5% of your operating budget is free cash. That's for the simple reason that free cash can be quite variable, and when it's in a bad way and it's negative, you then have to close budget holes you didn't anticipate. So you always bias to make it positive so you don't end up with budget problems in October. Okay. And because of that, the recommendation, and I say this every year, only use it for one-time operations. People will come to me once in a while and say, why don't we have these big free cash numbers, why don't we use it to fund more positions at Department X or Department Y? The reason you don't do that is because it is variable and not sustainable, so you never want to base your operations on money that you can't guarantee you're going to have every year. So, to give you an example of the variability, okay, this year our final free cash was $2,661,149, which is down 30% from last year. That doesn't in any way indicate a problem financially, but it demonstrates exactly why it shouldn't be used for operating expenses. What we're recommending tonight, what the FinCom is recommending, is that the town appropriate $561,500 of this to the town's various stabilization funds, our general stabilization fund, our pension stabilization fund, and a new fund that we hope to create tonight under Article 7, which is the opioid settlement account. And in case you're wondering why we'd be creating this fund, I know this is in the explanation, it's because the state is recommending that this is the way you should handle the opioid settlement money. So we're really just following best practices from the state. Another 1.85 roughly million will go to the capital expenditure fund with your approval tonight. Note that that is a change from our published report, which had 1.9 million. Again, that was because we adjusted the amount based on the final free cash number. So when we get to that article, the motion will read this number, $1,849,649, instead of the 1.9 million that's printed in the warrant. And the remainder of it, the $1,150,000, are used to fund various one-time article expenses. These are just one-time expenses in Articles 6, 10, 12, 13, and 15. Okay. Now, as far as our reserves, just a quick summary of where we are. Our policies require that we keep between 12 and 18% in our general stabilization fund. The amount in Article 1 will keep us in that target range. The 1.8+ million appropriation to the capital expenditure fund, to put that in perspective, that'll bring the total allocated to the fund, money we're putting into the fund between May and October, at 4.2 million. And if you look at what we're going to be spending from that, or what we've already spent in May, plus what we're asking to be appropriated tonight, that's 10.4 million. Now, I know, and I'll preemptively answer the question, why are we taking out 10 million and only putting in 4? Well, 7 of that 10 million is for the DPW project. And so it was allocated in May for when the DPW project hits to help reduce the debt burden that will come through on your taxes. So at the moment, of that 10.4, 7 million of it is not going anywhere until the DPW project moves forward. So if you exclude the DPW piece, we've only allocated 3.4 of the 4.2. But we know there are other capital projects that might require similar big initial funds, which is why we try to build up the fund over a period of years. And finally, our last reserve that we're dealing with tonight is the $250,000 to the pension stabilization fund, which will bring that balance up to just under $900,000. So, notable warrant articles, as I said, Article 3, that's only notable because our recommendation is now different from what was published. Article 5, again, this is where we made another adjustment because of the free cash amount. That's for the ongoing ADA repairs to sidewalks. The objective between the Select Board and the Finance Committee was to average $1 million a year for this project, recognizing that it would be variable as free cash allowed. Last year, we overfunded it. It was $1.25 million because we had a bigger free cash number. So we changed the recommendation in light of the new number from $1 million that's published in your report to $900,000. Again, that maintains our greater than $1 million per year average with a little bit of cushion, but allows us to put a little more in the capital expenditure fund. Finally, Articles 7 and 8, as I mentioned before, this is the opioid settlement money. This is based on recommendations from the Department of Revenue that the money, they mandated that the money goes to free cash, but then they basically said you should take the money and put it separately because it's earmarked for only opioid-related purposes. So what we're asking you to do tonight is approve Article 7, which says create this opioid fund, and Article 8 says take the money that was the piece of free cash from the opioid settlement and put it in there. Okay? And Article 15, I just wanted to point out, because a lot of people have said, what is Article 15 all about? Why are we funding some zoning related to the MBTA when we don't have T-service in town? I won't get into the gory details of it, but let's just say it's an unfunded mandate. We have to do this work because we are considered an MBTA adjacent community because we have MBTA stations nearby. And that's basically it. As I said, there's nothing really dramatic financially tonight. Just a reminder, our meetings are usually Tuesdays. We've gone virtual because of the much greatly increased public participation virtually than we got when we were in person. We will be meeting regularly starting in the budget season, which is generally December to April. So if anybody wants to have a preview of what you're going to see next May, then that's the time to start attending our meetings because you'll see us going through line by line of the budget. We can always be reached at our email shown here. And just as a reminder for all of you who are marking your calendars right now, next town meeting is May 6th of 2024. So I expect everybody here to be there because I've given you advance notice. Finally, this town meeting is all basically capital and one-time spending from the financial standpoint, move several projects forward. Nothing changes the operating budget tonight, so we're not even correcting anything we don't need to. And if the actions, the FinCom recommendations you approve those tonight, then we will keep ourselves in a strong financial position necessary to maintain our AAA rating. And as I say every time, we keep a close eye on the finances to ensure that the progress we've made to date is maintained. Thank you.
Okay, John and Ken, thank you. Let's move to the articles then. Article 1, General Stabilization Fund, sponsored by the Select Board. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the General Stabilization Fund or take any action relative thereto. The motion is, the FinCom recommends that the town appropriate $250,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article by a 7-0 vote. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $250,000 from free cash to the General Stabilization Fund. Is there a second? Second. By way of further explanation, the General Stabilization Fund with town meeting approval can be used to address extraordinary expenses. This article ensures that the balance of the General Stabilization Fund stays within the range of town financial policies. Is there any discussion? Requires a majority vote. Then all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 2, Pension Stabilization Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the Pension Stabilization Fund or take any action relative thereto. The FinCom recommended that the town appropriate the requested $250,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $250,000 from free cash to the Pension Stabilization Fund. Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 3, Capital Expenditure Fund, sponsored by the Select Board. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the Capital Expenditure Fund or take any action relative thereto. The Finance Committee recommends that the town appropriate $1,900,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. Is this the amount here? The lesser amount, 1,849,000?
Yes.
Yes, okay. The motion is for slightly less amount, move that the town vote to appropriate $1,849,649 from free cash to the capital expenditure fund. Is there a second? Second. This was explained by Mr. Shader earlier. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 4, capital budget, sponsored by the Select Board. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sum of money for the purpose of capital expenditures, including replacement of old vehicles and equipment for the following departments: police, ambulance, DPW/highways and grounds, facilities, parks and rec, and schools, including the expenditures listed below, and authorize the Select Board to trade or sell equipment to a part of the purchase price or take any action relative thereto. I'm going to read these, although they're published in the warrant, for the benefit of those who are following at home. Project EMS, Parens ALS Technology and Equipment for the Ambulance Department, $253,000. Fire, Personal Protective Equipment for the Fire Department, $78,000. Police vehicles, 2 cruisers, one administration hybrid for the Police Department, $170,800. Public Safety Drone Program for the Public Safety Department, $27,500. Reconfiguration of Public Safety Dispatch for the Facilities Department, $40,000. 1750 Washington Street, HVAC units and reconfiguration for the Facilities Department, $40,000. Library ADA access improvements for Facilities Department, $20,000. Bucket truck with attachments for DPW Highways and Grounds, $241,000. Rail trail parking at Mayflower Landing Crossing for the DPW and Trails Committee, $12,500. High school baseball field screening and backstop for the Parks Commission, $228,000. And student technology devices, grades 5 and 8 for the school department, $1,500,000. The grand total being $1,260,800. And the FinCom recommend that the town appropriate $1,233,300 from the capital expenditure fund for the items listed in the article, and further an additional $27,500 from the capital expenditure fund for the drone program item, contingent on the adoption of a drone use policy prior to the purchase of the equipment. The motion is move that the town vote to appropriate $1,260,800 from the capital expenditure fund for the items listed in the warrant, with $27,500 for a public safety drone program to only be expended after the adoption of a drone policy. Is there a second? This requires a 2/3 majority as a result of it involving an appropriation from the capital expenditure fund. We'll first try it on a voice vote. If I have a question, we'll address it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 5, sidewalk and ramp repairs and reconstruction, Year 2, sponsored by the Select Board. Oh.
He'd like you to make that clear that it was unanimous.
Oh, thank you. That prior vote was unanimous. Thank you. You've earned your keep already, Mr. Talaman. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sum of money for localized repairs or reconstruction of existing public sidewalks or ramps, including the labor, cost of materials, and disposal of materials, or take any action relative thereto. The Finance Committee recommends that the town appropriate $1 million from the capital expenditure fund for the purpose stated in the article. We're seeking 900 here, the motion, the lesser amount. Motion moved that the town vote to appropriate $900,000 from the capital expenditure fund for the purpose stated in the article. Is there a second? By way of additional explanation, a previously approved and procured evaluation of the town's sidewalk infrastructure has highlighted a backlog of sidewalks and ramps that require repair for various reasons, with ADA compliance being the driving factor for prioritizing these repairs. A working group of the Select Board, FinCom, and School Committee members recommended that this backlog be addressed with the use of cash on an annual basis until the list is complete. The vote requires a 2/3 majority, as we're appropriating, if it's done so, is from the capital expenditure fund. We'll proceed on a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That's unanimous, so voted. Article 6. Yes, Mr. Cronin? Okay, let me get the article in first. Okay, this is sponsored by the Select Board. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the rental or lease of equipment to signalize the intersection of Whitney Street and Washington Street, and to make recommended physical changes to allow for a left turn lane and right turn lane when exiting to Washington Street, or take any action relative thereto. The FinCom recommends that the town appropriate $150,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article, 7-0. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $150,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. Is there a second? Yeah, okay. Well, Mr. Crone, you want to address the meeting? I'm going to hold off on offering a suggested explanation and count on you to present it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Would you pull up the slide, Chris? Thank you. 2 slides for your benefit this evening. A little background on Article 6. The board undertook a task to examine the impact of heavy commercial vehicles on several streets in Holliston about 3 years ago. Woodland Street was one of them. Some folks that live on South Street may remember that was one. Fisk Street and several others. It was a package that was submitted to the state for their consideration and approval of a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. It was approved along with those other streets back in July of 2021. In August of 2021, Holliston PD began an intensive effort to alert commercial vehicle drivers that this access off of Woodland into Lowland into the industrial park was prohibited. Holliston PD's approach was educational. Drivers approaching these areas had become accustomed to using these roads, and we felt, in addition to the signage, that we spend some time explaining to them the preferred routes that these trucks would need to take. This evening, I wish to provide you some update that over the last 2 years, almost to the day, Holliston PD's had over 356 encounters with commercial vehicle operators on this Woodland, Lowland, Regal area. Now, when you look at HPD's collective effort for commercial vehicle over the same period, these encounters represent 84% of their work. It's a very busy area. Obviously, Lowland is a very active space, so we want folks to understand that as of the time when the exclusion was put in place, there was an awful lot of education that had to occur, and to this day, HPD contributes on almost a daily basis, you can see, their efforts to inform the vehicle operators of their violation. In some cases, they do issue citations. I do not have that information this evening, but you can appreciate that most efforts these days are more productive when you can inform people rather than penalize them. The penalty for an exclusion, by the way, is $35 per incident. In April of 2023, the board receives a notice of a violation about repeated abuses of the commercial vehicles on Woodland. Over the next several months, we continue to monitor it. In May, we had a citizen report of a commercial vehicle ripping communication lines off a home on Lowland. This was the second time that home had been impacted by these vehicles traveling on that road. This past summer, the Select Board entertained a lot of communication with residents, both in and outside of Lowland Industrial. We heard from all sides. We understand this is a complex issue. Lowland is a cut-through for a lot of folks. We felt strongly that the personal vehicle use is something that you all pay taxes for, and it's important that you understand that we feel very strongly that we have to try to maintain the personal vehicle access. But the commercial vehicle violations prevailed as a, I shouldn't say prevailed, continued as a problem. We commissioned a report with McMahon Associates. It's a firm that the town has done a fair amount of work with over the last several years. They're familiar with our community. Their report, all this information, by the way, is on the town's website. You can visit it if you'd like. But the McMahon report, we're charged with studying the signage in the area. I personally went up with former Selectman Kevin Conley, who I see here tonight. We looked at the area signage, which is dreadful, needs to be updated. And we also wanted them to examine alternatives for commercial vehicles to gain access into Lowland, because we want personal vehicles to get in there, but not commercial vehicles. So tell us, what do you recommend? They could not come up with some good solutions to impede commercial vehicles. In fact, they recommended that if all else fails, to close the access point at Lowland to commercial vehicles and thus all traffic. So the next steps. The board is taking a progressive approach here. We see that we're learning a lot. We understand the nature of what the citizens are asking us to do. But we're following the recommendations within the report, and in consideration of our board's overall focus on improved vehicular and pedestrian safety and access, Article 6 is the next step to address chronic issues. The temporary signalization with traffic counts will follow McMahon's recommendations, and I quote these two bullets. They recommend collecting traffic counts and performing traffic operations and signal warrant analysis to evaluate if the signalization is appropriate and to determine optimal lane assignments for each intersection approach. Secondly, the temporary traffic signals may be provided as an interim measure while a permanent intersection improvement in design is constructed. For folks maybe not overly familiar, this is the intersection right in front of Creative Playthings on Route 16. Once the signal is active, the board will begin assessing the impact of the proper traffic flow and compliance with the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. I want to go back real quick to the encounters that HPD has with many of these drivers. As you can imagine, many are not from around here. Some travel from out of state. They're following GPS. They see some signs, but they also see a clear path and a safe path for them to travel. One of the things we've learned is that they prefer the Woodland Street access because of the signal. It gives them the intersection to proceed safely without having to cut off traffic or find their way inching into ongoing traffic. Whitney's not that way right now. It's not a preferred entrance, but it is the main entrance to the park. So this temporary signalization is designed to give the town an opportunity to make that intersection safe, promote the opportunity to commercial vehicles to use it regularly, and stay away from the side roads and the neighborhoods that they've been negatively impacting. Finally, no, I don't want to get into all the details, but we do a lot of work with MassDOT. You know they approved our commercial vehicle exclusion. They have a TIP program that allows your state dollars to come home to improve roadways. A lot of it was recently done on Route 16, Washington Street. That was a TIP program. We will engage the state. Once we determine that this signalization is here to stay, we might have to look at redesigning that intersection to provide proper turnarounds. But the first step is put this in place, give the commercial vehicles a safe opportunity to enter and exit the park without interrupting the flow of traffic, and then measure it and come back to you and find out, do we need more money for roadway design? Do we need more money for permanent signalization? And most importantly, does this change the behavior of these drivers away from the neighborhoods and onto the main roads where they belong? So this evening, we ask for your permission, or approval, I should say, for Article 6, for the temporary signalization as the next step in our progressive efforts. Thanks so much, folks.
Further discussion? Yes, sir, ma'am? Sure, go ahead. Come on down. Thank you. If you can, just give us your name and address, please. Thank you.
Lixie Carey, 37 Green Street. I really appreciate everything that the board and everybody is doing to make this town very, very safe. But as many people in this town, I think, will agree with me, I have every confidence in your ability to lead this town. I have no confidence in McMahon. I'm sorry what they've done to our town in terms of downtown, and I think we need to take a pause. We have another article to talk about this coming up, so I prefer not to vote on something like this until, as a town, we have a chance to discuss this issue. I'm voting no.
Further discussion? Mr. Chipman.
I'd like to ask the board.
Sure, give me your name and address, please.
Tom Chipman, 116 Stagecoach Road.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to ask the board, did you guys, you were going to attempt to talk to everybody in the park before, trying to get all the information, what we're doing about the traffic coming out of the park. Not one customer, not one business has been notified in that park. We called around, emails. You guys told me you would do it, and you didn't do it. You're trying to get stuff together and try to find out how can we make this work. It hasn't happened yet. I think we came up quite a few meetings. You guys said you're going to do it. You didn't do it. And the other thing is, too, GPS. I look at the GPS right now, and it shows on the GPS that The Yidach Bridge Road is out of commission, reroute. Have we gone to a GPS to change this direction right now? Maybe to get the trucks to get on Whitney Street? I haven't seen that done yet. And these lights that we're asking for right now, I think we're putting the cart before the horse right now, because this is going to take longer than 2 years for this to happen. It's going to be a 4 to 5, maybe a 6-year thing. And the amount of money we're going to do is put in temporary lights. Think about what you're doing.
Further discussion? Just a second, Mr. Nguyen. Yes, sir? I'll give you a chance, John, to respond. Ma'am, excuse me. It's my eyes, not you, your appearance. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Antonia Clark, 266 Washington Street. I've lived here since 1979. I've seen a lot of changes in town, obviously. There used to never be any stoplights in Holliston when I started out. Too bad. There weren't any stoplights when I came to town. Okay? I think it's very important that we block off that access, that little teeny area, because box trucks come roaring down High Street. They don't care, because they can go to that and then cut over. And that happens all the time. And Woodland Street, although I don't have any kids in school now, is supposed to be a child-friendly street. How could that possibly be so when during certain times of the day, the traffic on Woodland cutting over left onto Lowland is amazing. It's like crazy. And if this is a short-term effort to try to halt that, I think it's a good thing, because maybe the trucks that also come, that actually come down High Street and cut through, because they have the stoplight there, so it's easy, maybe that will also ameliorate part of that problem. I'm voting yes for this.
Mr. Cronin? I'll get Kevin next.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Excuse me, in response to Mr. Chipman's questions, the notification to the business owners within the park and all abutters will be made when and if the board decides to take an action on a road closure. That's a public hearing, and that's part of the public process. So I just want to mention that to you, Tom. We've mentioned that to you before, but that is the next progressive part of the notification to all of those business owners. And then finally, the GPS question. We work regularly with the GPS firms, all of them, through Public Works. They keep hitting reset. I'm afraid they're not as cooperative as we would like them to think, but we have, and many departments across the state do the same thing. They're always trying to influence or tell the GPS companies how to route traffic. It's not always successful, but we do that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Conley?
Kevin Conley, 44 Cranberry Lane. I just want to notify the selectmen that if this is successful, the traffic coming through all these towns in Route 16 in rush hour, Wellesley, Natick, Holliston, Milford, it's all horrendous. No ifs, ands, or buts, and you're not going to reverse that. It's just, you're going to get a light somewhere. But be wary that that new light might back up, and people might be zipping down Cranberry Lane on a rapid fashion. Just want to be aware of that to make sure it doesn't put us underneath. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Zico? Get you next, sir.
Hi, Pam Zico, 180 Fisk Street. I have a lot of trucks and cars going by my house now. But I wonder why the Select Board chooses to only notify businesses after the gate is put up and not while the exclusion is in force. It's easy for a company within the industrial park to let its vendors and customers know not to use that way. You put it in the bill of lading instructions, or you just tell them when they're coming. A lot of the trucks that I've seen come through there, and we're not really talking about the Lowland Street place right now, but Whitney Street. I think we do need lights there. I think trucks coming out of that road, it's really impossible to take a left turn, and if you get behind one of those big trucks, you can't make a right turn or a left turn, and then we're going to be going down Cranberry Ave. But I would like to know why businesses haven't been part of this communication, and I'm not talking about landlords, I'm talking about the people who do business within the industrial park. So if the select board could respond to that, why businesses have not really been part of this conversation from the beginning of the exclusion. And is Bullitt Street going to get a gate if trucks keep going down it, or is that ridiculous thought?
John, you want to respond to that? Sure.
So again, to restate, the notification to businesses will occur if and when the board decides to take action on the closure of Lowland. The businesses were communicated with a couple of years ago when we sought the exclusion in the first place, so there was ample communication with them. Regarding the barrier, I think there was a little conflation there. This article and the scope of this article, Mr. Moderator, does not include the discussion of a barrier, but I think what Ms. Zico is referring to is the condition upon which we would close Lowland would include a potential barrier. I didn't come prepared to discuss that this evening, so I don't want to think that Pam was confused there, but for sure I want to let her know that we did and have and intend to communicate with our business community. They're very important to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir? Thank you, John.
Good evening, Bill Rodenheiser, 213 Central Street. As far as the truck exclusions and businesses being notified, were just the businesses in the park, Lowland, notified? No other businesses? Because a lot of other businesses use these travelways until the bridge was closed. Also, while it might be a thoughtful approach to add lights at the Whitney Street as being suggested, I also heard someone talk about the fact that we have other things coming up on the agenda tonight that might make sense to discuss, and therefore I also think this should be put on hold until we have the broader discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Come on up and tell us who you are, sir, and then I'll address it.
My name's Andy Rodenheiser. I own property in Holliston, though I'm a Medway resident.
Okay, so hang on. Prior to Article 1, we had a vote to permit non-residents to speak at town meeting, and notwithstanding the fact that Mr. Rodenheiser owns property here, he's not permitted to address us without a vote at town meeting. So is there a motion to allow him to address us? Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I used to own property at 71 Whitney Street. It's now known as the Nicholson Plumbing Building. When I owned that property, I constantly had tractor trailers that were lost. They would turn around in my driveway, believe it or not. And the issue was they would come down Whitney Street and Jeffrey would just magically begin. And Whitney would turn hard left. And most of the truck drivers didn't realize that they continued off of Jeffrey onto, off of Whitney onto Jeffrey. And they became lost. And they go up and they go around in a circle. And it's you know, they're lost, legitimately lost. And signage could be greatly enhanced, not just a street sign, but a literal, you know, maybe much more of a prominent notification that Jeffrey has started, because they're coming in off of Route 16, which is good, and not utilizing Lowland from Woodland. Additionally, I think that by blocking off Lowland Street, well, I guess we'll hold that for the other discussion. So I would encourage the meeting to consider lots of other alternatives before you just put in a light. The sight distance as you come down Route 16, as you come over the hill, I think it's Locust on the left, you could be coming at a good speed and then everything is stopped because of that light, and it's new, certainly. I've been 19 years on the Medway Planning Board, and you know, we've dealt with a lot of these issues. And I'm really shocked at what has happened in Holliston with the lights. And I think it's really important that the timing of these lights is kind of all coincided so that traffic actually flows at the right times of the day, so things are a lot better and you don't have the endless waits, particularly when the local knowledge that everyone in Holliston has, now all of a sudden routes that you use to migrate around the traffic are eliminated slowly. Those are my thoughts and concerns.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, miss? Yes, miss? Who wants this to be? Ben? Travis, okay.
Hi, Jessica Oman, 116 Locust Street. I just asked the Select Board to consider the traffic ramifications of the neighborhoods in between Woodland and Whitney Street. I know Locust. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm there all the time. And first of all, truck traffic there is a massive problem as well. And regular residential traffic, or not residential, but regular traffic, just rush hour traffic, is a nightmare. And if we put a signal at Whitney Street, it's going to be impossible to turn off of Locust, and that's something that really needs to be considered. If a traffic signal does go up at Whitney, right now Woodland Street gets backed up all the way to Locust. We're going to have it going in both directions now, and that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Travis, did you want to be heard? Please, thank you.
Thank you. Just before we get too far, so I can address as they go here, the first Mr. Rodenheiser, Bill Rodenheiser's question on was only the lowland businesses addressed directly. That was prior to the public forum in August of 2020, when the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion was sort of a byproduct of that discussion of what the select board could assist the residents' concerns with. And so that was specific to the lowland industrial park businesses at that time. The outcome and the package that went to Mass DOT for the heavy commercial vehicle exclusions would include a number of streets, including Locust Street that was just mentioned, was then added to include South Street, because at the time the select board was also getting a number of complaints about South Street specifically as it relates to the Hopping Brook Industrial Park, excuse me. So the majority of those came out of a discussion based on lowland, and that's why the lowland businesses were specifically engaged. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, miss?
Hi, I'm Alyssa Sanford, 196 Central. So I commute every day back and forth, and my commute is heavily impacted by the Woodland Street Bridge project. Getting to my kids to and from school is also impacted. I think we're not taking into account all the people that live in and around that area and that are massively affected every single day, multiple times a day by this closure. My now route go around is Lowland Street. Every day I'm there twice a day, sometimes stuck in traffic from big trucks that are getting into their businesses. That being said, you put in a light there, my commute is 10 times worse. The traffic is already so bad everywhere else. My other route around to continue down Washington Street and go up Central is massive. I mean, I'm sitting in traffic forever because of the Woodland Street light, the Concord Street light, like it doesn't end. And like I'm at my breaking point with the amount of traffic that I'm sitting in, the amount of time it's taking me to get around town and to get to my house downtown in Central Street. And I really feel like this needs to be a further discussion, and the residents in the area need to be considered, not just the Lowland Street people. Thanks.
Okay. Travis?
Sure. So just a couple points there. I think one of the benefits of looking at the Whitney Street and working with Mass DOT on this is going to be look holistically in that area, because in that area we're all going through a bit of a hardship as it relates to Woodland Street. I just wanted to give an update, as that was mentioned earlier. The town hit its first goal with Mass DOT, Army Corps of Engineers, and the Office of Dam Safety in June 30th, 2023 this year at 25% design, submitting a small bridge grant with the assistance of our representative and senator. And so that was the first checkpoint. The next checkpoint comes at the end of this calendar year with 100% design going into the a grant application with the Office of Dam Safety. So we are looking to get Woodland Street open as quickly as possible because of the degradation of the superstructure that the bridge and the dam tie into. It is going to be about an 8-month project, but we're hoping to have that paid for by the state and move as quickly as we possibly can. So obviously that's a major component of this. But when you factor in Woodland Street into the equation that we're talking about here, excuse me, the signalization of Whitney Street makes a lot of sense, removing the conversation about Lowland Street itself, right? A barrier at Lowland Street is not a discussion in this article at all. That is a completely separate issue. I know it does come up later in the warrant in a non-binding citizens petition. But the Lowland Street component is a completely different conversation that would require a public hearing. That was the discussion we had earlier. The benefit of looking at Whitney Street as a way for heavy commercial vehicles, those that are 2.5 tons or more, to leave the industrial park, is to take away the burden of those going to Woodland Street. So now if you consider what was just mentioned, which is that Woodland Street is closed to through traffic because of the bridge closure, the fact that we are still seeing heavy commercial vehicles use Woodland Street, they're not coming from the other side of town to go down Woodland Street anymore. It's no longer being used as a cut-through. It is to exit the park, right? And so in that sense, it is looking at Whitney Street as, if you make that a viable way for a truck to turn left or right without having to merge, that is a safety issue for them, you're giving them the proper means of egress from the industrial park, and that is the intent. And so again, I know that there was some misinformation that came through my office recently that the town is not pursuing the opening of Woodland Street. That is completely incorrect. We would love to be moving as quickly as possible. I just have to let you know, right, we have to go through Army Corps of Engineers, we have to go through Mass DOT, we have to go through the Office of Dam Safety. It's just how government works, and I appreciate everybody's patience with that, and I understand that it is a hardship. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Sorry? Yes? Sure. Who's that? Oh.
Hi, Ann Shipman, 116 Stagecoach Road. I have a couple of concerns about this article. Primarily is, I've been paying attention to the select board meetings, primarily about the closing of Lowland, but I have had an opportunity to hear some of the discussion on the Whitney, Washington signalization, and they suggest that temporary traffic lights will cost $7,000 a month. So that's close to $100,000 per year. And in one of the meetings, Mr. Ahern referenced the tip process in Natick. On Route 27, Natick just got a series of lights. And what Mr. Ahern said is that this project is approaching 8 years. It was 5 years in the design process and 3 years in the construction process. So permanent signalization is going to take a long time. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. And $7,000 for that period of time every month is a huge amount of money. My second point is that also in their discussions, this intersection was looked at when they did the lighting at Woodland and High. And there were concerns because they didn't have the sight distance. As you exit, is it Whitney? As you exit Whitney, they didn't have the sight distance going to the left, so heading up towards town. So my understanding is that that road, or 16, actually needs to be dropped about a foot, and that's extensive construction. So I don't support this article because a very important thing to consider is how safe is this? So we know that that intersection is deficient. We know there's a rail trail about 100 feet to the left. We know we don't have the appropriate sight distance. So you put these temporary lights up without making those changes. How safe is this intersection? And what kind of liability does that open the town up to? You've signalized an intersection that you know hasn't been engineered. So I'd just like you to consider those points. Thank you.
Go ahead, Travis.
Did not plan to speak this much. I apologize. I just want to clarify a couple things because that was referencing my discussion with the Finance Committee. And so I did use the Natick TIP project as an example when discussing that with the Finance Committee prior to their recommendation in favor. The Natick project specifically is a much different scope. I don't know if anybody drives through Natick consistently, but the 27 area was tens of millions of dollars. That's why it took 8 years. This is a much different scale and scope. And so I know that there was an individual who didn't feel overly confident in McMahon, but I think the point that was made was the way that the TIP project, the TIP works at Mass DOT is that generally they are very, very large, tens of millions of dollars projects, right? But what happens, and this was the point that McMahon was saying, the town could look to work with DOT in a much quicker fashion. I think we referenced hopefully 2 to 4 years, was that we would be looking at potentially a $2 million project. We have been out in this area with Mass DOT previously, as we have in the community, and safety is obviously the biggest concern. The point that McMahon was making in dealing with Mass DOT on a consistent basis is that with a $2 million project, as you enter that type of grant program, generally speaking, a large project, Brockton is doing a $30 million project. It gets delayed 2 years for various reasons. They try to pick small projects, $1 to $2 million like ours, hypothetically, and that is how we would progress much quicker than the Natick project that was in the tens of millions of dollars. And so that was the one example there that I just wanted to mention. And then also the previous speaker mentioned sort of what was called PWED at the time. It's no longer PWED. That was an old grant program, but in 2010, what essentially led to, well, it was 2008 to 2010, what led to the light signals, the signalization of Woodland Street was considered phase 1 of a PWED grant through the state. And it put in the lights there, but then the second phase was moving down eastbound on 16 towards the Sherburne line, which is what we're now talking about. So really, again, what we're looking at here for temporary signalization and then working with DOT on a long-term solution here, looking holistically at the entire area, is really what was considered phase 2. Ms. Chipman was correct. One of the concerns with this is, one, this needs to tie in for safety, for pedestrian safety, the rail trail crossing in the area. When you go past that, you also have an exit from Covanta, which has large commercial vehicles, and then you're progressing towards the Woodland Street lights. So it's a complex issue and one that certainly we'll be continuing to work with DOT on. They've been excellent partners in a variety of different areas for us recently, and so this is sort of a culmination of a lot of work that has been going on for quite a while now, including well before I think this select board or myself, when the lights at Woodland Street came in. The second phase was working on the entrance to the industrial park, this is looking to progress us with, gain more information, and ultimately have a long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognize the gentleman from Prospect Street.
Thank you for your time. My name is Mike Brumber. I own land on Lowland Street also. A couple things. I'm going to focus on what Ann Chipman said. There was a lady named Michelle DeMar from the Mass DEP. She does traffic studies. The town of Holliston actually brought me to court. I did 3 traffic studies in that area. I brought Michelle DeMar with my daughter. They drove all around to do this traffic study. And at that point in time, I think Karen Sherman, the town council, no, I'm not looking at you, sorry. The town council was in the court, in land court. They were specifically told that it's gravely dangerous to pull out of Whitney Street onto Washington in a truck. gravely dangerous. So to put temporary lights there is just ludicrous. $7,000 a month, I didn't even know that's what that costs. That is insane amount of money to waste. The trucks are leaving the industrial park, number one, to be safe, to save their lives. Number two, to save other people's lives. They go down Lowland Street and take a right on Woodland Street is the only safest path of this moment to get out of that industrial park. Granted, you can go down Fish Street, but now you can't go down Bullard Street because you've blocked that off. So the trucks can't make the right, the left, the right, the left. In order to leave Lowland Street, take a right on Fisk, you can now no longer in a 44-foot truck take a left without potentially killing somebody. The thought process of this whole industrial park, we understand there's a problem, but to minimize the problem with little things is I don't think the answer. I think there's a bigger problem here. I think you have a lot of emotions down there. I was told by 2 police officers that came to my property and said, we're going to stop your trucks from coming to the property. How do you stop trucks in an industrial park that's been there for, I think, over 57 years? I think there needs to be a lot more input before you just throw lights up and say, this is going to be a temporary fix to a very bad problem. I'm voting.
Okay. So you want to be heard again? I'm going to let this gentleman speak, then I'll entertain a motion.
Bill Rodenheiser, 213 Central Street. I also own industrial land in the New Englander. And I'm a site contractor. And thinking about this and hearing all these great comments, it brings to mind not only the cost, which to me seems like a lot of money to try something out, particularly if it's going to take that long to actually have something working functionally. The cost of the timing, running the lights, and then my brother had actually mentioned the radius, the road radius. I mean, it's kind of like up by Western Nurseries. I don't know if anybody's traveled up 135 there. They had to basically cut the entire road down and change the radius point to make it safe so that people could, you know, see ahead. So you're talking about, in this stretch of land, you're talking about retaining walls. And I mean, where are we going with this? I think this definitely needs a further look from, you know, all of us, including the last item that's on the agenda for tonight, and, you know, how we're traveling around this whole area. The Lowland Street Bridge being closed, how much that impacts the whole area. The fact that I was never even notified as an industrial landowner in the New Englander about the signs going up about the truck traffic blocking. I think we just need to take a harder look at this.
Great, thank you. Had a motion to move the questions to a second? All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? So voted. We'll proceed to a vote. Before we do, I want to make 2 comments if I could. I want to compliment the town meeting for the civilized nature of the debate. I understand that these are issues that people feel strongly about, but I'm proud of the tradition that we have here, that the debate in large part doesn't become personal. It's an issue to talk about. And particularly, I want to compliment the first-time speakers that got up and had an opportunity to speak tonight. As you know from working with me over the past few years, we have uncontested matters. I like to proceed at a brisk pace because I'm respectful of your time, but I do generally welcome debate. I like to see it. It's the heart of town meeting, and this is kind of personifies that people get up and with an opportunity to advance their position, and I just wanted to offer that positive comment from my perch up here. So it's unlikely that we're going to have a unanimous vote here tonight, so we have tellers that are appointed. I'm going to call for a voice vote. The motion is that the town move to appropriate $150,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. All those in favor, raise their hand, please.
You want to do a hand count?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm going to do a hand. I don't know, voice. We're going to do a hand count, please.
Oh, voice. You're doing hand.
We're going to do hand.
Okay.
Okay? We have our tellers. All those in favor, raise your hand, please.
23? Sorry, what?
Here, go ahead.
1, 5? 10? 28? Thank you.
Is that enough? No, I mean, is that the number?
Yeah, there's 1,
Tell
2,
us?
3, 4, 5, yeah.
Okay, all those opposed, please raise your hand, please. Oh, that's going down.
Twenty-four. 24. 31. Wow. 1, 4.
Okay, the vote is 89 in favor, 145 opposed. That's, the article's defeated. Move to Article 7, to establish an opioid settlement stabilization account sponsored by the Select Board to see if the town will vote pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to create a new special purpose stabilization fund to be known as the Opioid Settlement Stabilization Fund, and further, to adopt the last paragraph of said Section 5B and dedicate to such fund, without further appropriation, 100% of the opioid litigation settlement funds received by the town or take any action relative thereto. The FinCom recommended favorable action, 7-0. The motion is move that the town vote to approve the article as presented in the warrant. Is there a second? Second. And as Mr. Shader and I think the Board of Selectmen indicated in the opening comments, this provides for the specific treatment of proceeds to receive or having been received by the town from an opioid settlement at the state level. This requires a 2/3 vote because it's the creation of a stabilization fund. We'll see if we can do it on a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed? That's unanimous. So voted. Article 8. Strike that. What was that?
That was 7. Yeah, that was 7. Now you're on 8.
Same one.
No,
Nope.
no, it's not. It's
I know it's not.
to transfer.
Was Article 8 then?
You just read 8?
I just read 8.
7 established, 8 is put money into it.
Oh, 8 is to transfer the money?
It's, yeah.
No, 8 is to transfer money that already came in.
Got it. Okay.
7 is for
7
future
for
money.
staff.
8 is
Thank you. All right, 7 was for future money. Article 8, transfer to opioid settlement stabilization account. To see it sponsored by the Select Board, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the opioid settlement stabilization fund or take any action relative thereto. The FinCom recommends that the town appropriate $61,500 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. The motion is move that the town vote to appropriate $61,500 from free cash to the opioid settlement stabilization fund. Is there a second? Did I hear a second? Yes, fine, thank you. Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 9, envisioning future Holliston presentation of townwide strategic plan. This is sponsored by the town administrator, and is to hear a report of the envisioning future Holliston committee and the town's consultant, Berry Dunn, or take any action relative thereto. I don't understand that this is going to require a vote of town meeting, so we're just going to have an informational presentation, if you please. Go right ahead, sir. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I have some people who will be joining me shortly. I just want to given the time constraints of a 15-minute presentation, just want to set some expectations going forward. Town meeting's not being asked to vote for anything this evening, but it's my sincere hope that you'll all be excited about the update you received tonight and stay engaged with the finalization of this process. Excuse me, I lost my train of thought here. So the finalization of the process will be by the end of this calendar year, and then we'd also be looking for your support at future town meetings in the years to come. The townwide strategic plan is intended to cover FY25 through FY29, and I note here that FY25 starts on July 1st, 2024, per the town government calendar. I also want to point out that many of the actionable ideas that you'll hear about tonight or read in the draft documents online, if you'd like to look further, are already in motion, and some of these initiatives take years to come to fruition, some of which were led off by the chairs of the Finance Committee and the Select Board. Other actionable ideas that are new from community feedback will require additional vetting by departments, boards, and committees as we enter the next budget and capital planning cycle. I'll come back at the end of the presentation, but right now I'd like to introduce the Barry Dunn lead, Charlene Carangozzi, who will then bring up additional members of Envisioning Future Holliston to give you the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me all right? All righty. My name is Charlene Carangozzi. I'm representing the firm Barry Dunn tonight. And Barry Dunn is a national consulting and accounting firm, and we do this work nationwide, helping communities kind of go through their strategic planning process. So what we'll walk you through today is just kind of a quick overview of the agenda, and then we'll also walk you through some of the content of the plan. With that being said, here's a quick agenda. So as I mentioned, we'll do a review of the kind of project approach to talk, get you up to speed as far as what we've done so far, and also walk you through some of the reviews of the content of the actual plans, which includes the guiding principles, the mission, vision statements, and then you'll hear from Travis as far as next steps. I'm sure you probably have some questions as far as what's to come after this plan is implemented. But before that, I also wanted to bring over some of the members of the Envisioning Future Holliston Committee, just to kind of talk you all through the process, because I do want to note that this is not a plan that Barry Dunn developed and wrought, but this is more so a plan that we work with the community to really make sure that it was a community-informed process and getting your thoughts and feedback for your future. With that, Marlene and Barbara. And I'll just kind of walk you all through as well as they come up a few timeline items here, just to kind of get you up to speed as far as, what all the work that really was involved in developing the strategic plan. So phase one was kind of, getting to know the town and getting to request information from the town to get to know, the different landscapes as well. And then we also kind of look to develop this different community engagement methods, right? So looking and thinking about what's the best way to engage the community of Holliston, whether that's through interviews, focus groups. We really wanted to make sure that we heard as many voices as possible as part of this process. And in phase two, I won't steal too much of Marlene's thunder here, but this is really a phase to really get to, engage the community and get their thoughts and feedback as far as what they envision the town to be. And in this phase two, we held a few forums to get some more community input. Phase three was where we actually met with the Envisioning Future Holliston Committee to get to know, defining some of the directions of the strategic plan, which included the mission, vision statements, guiding principles, and some of the priorities. And again, those were really driven based on the input that we heard from the community during phase two. Phase four is what we're currently working towards. That includes just the plan finalization. So putting all the pieces together, the performance measures are still being reviewed by boards and community members at the town. And then from there, we're also looking to finalize the cost-benefit analysis. With that, Barbara.
I have to give my address. Barbara Peaty, 166 Union Street. The Envisioning Future Holliston Committee is comprised of 7 members, each representing the boards and committees that fall into that category, and 5 associate members. And we all discussed every area. We were not limited. For example, representing all the boards and committees that make up Health and Human Services is Peter Egan, and his alternate is Deb Farr. The general government is covered by Ben Sparrow and Pat Boyd. Representing education is Stacy Raffi, and she has a student ambassador working with her. And representing sustainability and environment is Rich Rosenberry. Economic development and housing is represented by Glenn Brown and his alternate, Victoria Sadlowska-Anshu. And the land use comes under my purview as a planning board member, and Jack LeWinter is my alternate. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is represented by Annie Singh, with Marlene Fine as an alternative. But the input to develop the various parts of the plan came from you, the community, which Marlene will explain over the next slide. And putting into the plans into action will be the responsibility of the town leadership. That's the town administrator and department boards and committees. Marlene.
Good evening. Marlene Fine, 43 Jackson Drive. As both Charlene and Barbara have said, our approach was to look specifically to the voices of the community because we wanted to ensure community ownership of this plan. So we used 6 strategies to ensure that we would hear your voices. First, Barry Dunn had interviews with diverse members of the community, including all the members of the committee. They conducted 26 interviews. They averaged 2 hours an interview. Second, we used the Social Pinpoint Community Engagement Platform, which is on the Holliston Town website, and I suspect a number of you have used it. That included an ideas wall and also an open-ended forum where people could share their personal visions of the future of the community. Now that platform has a draft proposal up, and you can respond to it on the platform. We've had nearly 6,000 people use the website, and 2,000 of those are unique users, people who have come at least once. Meeting in a box was our third strategy, and this was a tool for engaging small groups to talk about their vision of the future for Holliston. And the Social Pinpoint site included information about how to organize a meeting in a box, and materials were available at Town Hall if residents wanted to have them. Between Barry Dunn, the members of the committee, and residents of the community, we received information from 71 different meetings in a box. We then had, as our fourth strategy, open community forums. We ran 3 in May, and those were focused on mission, vision, and strategy. And then we had 3 in September, which were focused on the draft plan itself. We had 39 people attend those sessions. Our fifth strategy was to look at all of the existing town plans, including the master plan for the town of Holliston, the existing police plan, the fire department plan, the Holliston Public Schools, and all of the other plans that already exist here. And then finally, we looked at the data from previous surveys, and I know a number of you here participated either in the community-wide survey on envisioning a future Holliston, and also the survey that was done by the UMass Boston Gerontological Institute, which was done for seniors in the community. And using all that data, I think the committee believes that we are putting together a plan, which you're going to hear about now, which really reflects a community-wide vision for the future of this community.
Thank you, Marlene. So that being said, I plan on walking you all through some of the content of the plan. I do want to note the full version is up online. You can find it through the town website if you have more questions as well on that. So what you're looking on the screen are the guiding principles. Essentially, these are the core behaviors that, town residents should expect from the town government as far as how it's delivering its services and also how it's conducting its business overall. So one of the things that we developed here are, really items such as being transparable, being accountable, right? These are things that you all should expect from your town government. And they really also are things that you can see throughout the plan, right? So as we're looking at all the objectives, ideally everything is going to be implemented with all these guiding principles in mind. So the mission and vision statements, these are what we came up with based on your input and your feedback, and also the development of the planning sessions with the committee. And your mission statement really is looking to describe Holliston's reason for being. And oftentimes, when you look at different organizations and different local government, The mission statement is inherently very similar because your, their legal mandates and your reason for being is typically pretty similar. Your vision statement rather actually looks to define your desired future state, right? Where should Holliston be 5 years from now? And it really, looks to identify certain items that came up during the surveys, right? Looking at some of the items that people would want Holliston to improve in, but we also may look at things that Holliston does really well right now that it should keep on doing pretty well. So that's kind of what you're seeing on the screen is both your mission and vision statement. So next we'll be transitioning to those strategic priorities. Again, in the interest of time, I won't read all of these. What I'll just look to do is give you a few examples per each priority and also talk a little bit about how everything kind of fits into the strategic plan. So your goal statement, and I want to note as well that these are in alphabetical order, they're not in order of importance, but your goal statement is really looking to define the long-term, broad, and continuous statements. That defines how you're going to be making progress towards your vision within each of the strategic priorities. And they also help to determine where the town is heading, right? Whereas the objectives are also, they're looking to help determine what the town will focus on to be able to get to the goal statement. So that's kind of how everything fits in. And then the measures are how we know that we'll be successful. So as an example, frequently reviewing and evaluate town policies for fairness, equitability, so really making sure that all policies are going through the select board for review of fairness and equitability within the DEI strategic priority. And a measurable example would be, evaluating all policies for equity by June 30th of 2024, and also establishing an annual review just so that those documents can stay up to date. So the next strategic priority is related to education and enrichment. And as Travis mentioned here, a lot of these are actually in progress. A lot of these strategic objectives that you'll see here. But as an example for the objective is, continuing the commitment to find a long-term facility solution at the Holliston High School. So to do so and to know that we'll be successful, there is, the town is currently working with the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And what that is, it's really a public school building agency that helps to support design and constructions of public school facilities in the Commonwealth. So with that, how we'll know we'll be successful would be to continuing to pursue state funding through the MSBA to either look to replace or reconstruct the current high school. This is actually really relevant too because the MSBA did a walkthrough of the facility in October this year, and the town should be getting an update on where, what the next steps are in November 2023. The next item is related to environmental sustainability. So the example here for the objective that I will read is developing an action plan to prepare the town for climate change impacts and also serving as a guide to equitably achieve climate mitigation, resilience, and sustainable goals. So as we all know, a lot of the climate action plans that we do see in local government is really essentially a strategic framework to measuring, planning, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and also related climate impacts. And again, the select board would be involved in some of the development of the plan and perhaps setting up a committee to help out with that as well. The next one is pretty important, right? To be able to accomplish all of these strategic priorities, we need to make sure that the town has fiscal health and stability. So this one specifically relates to financial stability. And really, the goal here would be maintaining financial policy to guide policy making and decision making, and also essentially having long-term fiscal health. And policies are really written as a guide to make financial decisions and also set strategic intent for financial management, are really central to long-term approach to ensuring financial management. And as a measurable example, this would be to continue the biannual review of financial policies and ensure that they're up to date. The town actually currently reviews these policies every 2 years. The last one was in 2021, so they are due for review and update. Flourishing economy, so an example for this is implementing the metro area planning committee's economic development vision and service model plan. This is essentially to seek opportunities to attract and support all of businesses. So one of the things that we heard during the community forums is that people would like to see more vibrancy within the town of Holliston. So to do so, these are an example of an objective of how that could be achieved. And the metro area planning committee helps municipalities prepare for economic development and also perhaps could be doing some visioning process as well. A measurable example for this would be appointing a new economic development committee director/coordinator by June 2024. I believe this person is actually intended to start on Monday. So as I mentioned, a lot of these things are in progress. And really the EDC's role is to promote and encourage and facilitate the development of responsible and properly planned growth in commercial and industrial growth. The next one is robust infrastructure. So again, before we can even have a vibrant downtown and a lot of businesses, et cetera, we need to make sure that the town has the infrastructure to be able to support that. So an objective example here was investing in water and the sewer infrastructure to provide opportunities to scale affordable housing, as well as diverse commercial development. As a measurable example here, it's looking at the creation of a sewer district related to the downtown sewer project, which is actually in the design stages. There is that feasibility study project in place, and the town has engaged property owners in the impacted area so that, with questionnaires and forums with the consultant, and the town has also engaged MassDEP for capacity authorization of the existing wastewater treatment plan. And the next steps, once this is finalized, would be to establish a sewer commission, potentially around May 2024. So if you're at the next town meeting, you will likely hear some updates on what that project is going and how that's going right now. So the next one is related to thriving and engaged communities. So one of the feedback that we heard is that people are wanting to, want the town to improve the way it's communicating to residents and ensuring that people are getting the right information that they need at the right time. So this is what this priority is related to. And an objective example here is improving communication and education to support residents in finding and accessing resources. A measurable example would be to exploring new communication tools. I know a lot of organizations that I've worked with, have a 311 system perhaps to be able to disseminate information to residents. But this would also include maybe having a town calendar and a third-party communication technology to support the increase of information flow to the community. And the goal here really would be to strengthen community engagement. As we heard, that was, one of the feedback that we heard as being something that the town can improve on. With that, I will have Travis speak a little bit about next steps and where we go from here.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to wrap up here and talk about next steps for those who are interested in any of these topics. First, I'd like to thank Marlene, Barbara, and Charlene, the entire Envisioning Future Holliston Committee, and all the Holliston stakeholders that have engaged in this process to date. We've been at this since May of 2021, and there's been an incredible amount of information coming, but also a lot of work to be done from volunteers within the community, staff. I'd specifically like to thank as well Kathleen Buckley, the Assistant Town Administrator, who has been staffing and helping throughout this process. As you just heard from Charlene, a few examples to help conceptualize how these things might come to fruition in the next 5 years. But there is a comprehensive version online that sort of will complement this truncated presentation that you've seen tonight due to our time restraints. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in any of these topics, has questions, to go read that. We are currently soliciting feedback on the more in-depth actionable ideas from departments, boards, and committees right now before finalization of this plan, but that doesn't mean that anybody who's not on a board or committee cannot continue to be interested in this process. We have the email address up here that will get you to the entire Envisioning Future Holliston Committee, and you can also reach out to my office if you'd like, and we can put you in touch, or if there's any questions, we can answer those. So there may be some questions tonight. We're happy to take those, but really what I would encourage everybody who might be interested in this process and involved, wants to get involved prior to its finalization, to reach out to Envisioning Future Holliston, or reach out through my office. Holliston has an exciting future, and this planning will ensure that we can efficiently deliver the desired services to the community for the next 5 years and beyond. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, folks. Yes, sir? Yeah, sure. You're welcome to speak.
Good evening, Robert Principe, 203 Turner Road, Holliston. I'd like to just talk to us about Travis' charge to us to be engaged in this. It's a 5-year plan. That's a long, long time for us to think about Holliston's future and what's going to happen. So what is that? I'm kind of thinking out loud about us. What does that encompass? All this work that's been done is so powerful. The context is for us to think about who we need to become. And you know, given who we are and what we need to become. So some of the kind of demographics of Holliston, of who we are, per se. And I think these are 2021 numbers, but don't quote me. So median household income in Holliston is over $142,000, with 3% of the population in poverty. The larger context is that this August, over 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's a socioeconomic demographic issue to be addressed in Holliston. Housing, 90% home ownership, value over $485,000. Massachusetts alone needs between 125,000 and 200,000 more housing units, urgently. Changing demographics. We know we're aging. Holliston is certainly part of that. America today, 65 and older, will more than double over the next 40 years. 85 and older will nearly quadruple by 2040, with all the rising health needs and service needs that are associated with that change in aging in America, in Holliston. Racial, ethnic, cultural diversification. Massachusetts alone, the Asian American community is almost doubled since 2000, 46.9%. And this is an interesting piece. The increase in the multiracial, multi-ethnic Black and Afro-Latino residents, which up till recently was, you know, all in Boston, 76%. But now, since 2020, that number is completely flipped. Flipped at 64% of regional, multiracial, and multi-ethnic Black and Afro-Latino residents live outside of Boston. But here's the caveat. Lots of communities in Greater Boston have this diversity, lots don't. Little multiracial, multi-ethnic Black and Afro-Latino population growth in the regions that it's not happening. Many of the region's high-income suburbs continue to be less welcoming, either explicitly through exclusionary housing zones or implicitly through cultural norms and institutions that are less appealing for this diverse population. And the plan has a great piece that we want to be able to attract and retain a diverse pool of workers, residents, and businesses. That's our future. We're even going to put the infrastructure, robust infrastructure in place to make that happen for that population if we can attract. Yet, we have to then think about why it's true that Holliston is almost 90% white. Not by osmosis. And just over 1% Black, 3% Hispanic, 6.7% Asian, and a little over 3% two or more races. The final piece. We're almost 15,000 residents. I'm not, that again, ballpark. We had less than 2% vote in town elections this past spring. 1.949. Less than 2%. So that's the engagement piece. That's the thing that Travis mentioned. We need us to be able to do what we need to do for the viability of Holliston moving forward. The strategic plan is what it is. It's about the viability, health, and well-being of the town moving forward. But it truly has to be representative of who we already are and where we need to go. And we need to define and finance the policies and practices that Holliston needs to become that change that we need to realize. So it's going to require us, that's what I want to add to all the work that's been done, that we need to engage this to create the change that Holliston needs to be viable, as other communities have already done for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Article 10, Architectural and Conceptual Design of the Senior Center Improvements, sponsored by the Select Board with an estimated cost of $25,000. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sum of money to engage an architectural firm to perform conceptual designs of options to maximize and optimize the space at the Holliston Senior Center, located at 150 Goulding Street, or take any action relative thereto. The FinCom recommends that the town appropriate $25,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $25,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 11, Community Preservation Committee, sponsored by the CPC. See if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money for the following uses or take any action relative thereto. Service areas, the Holliston Historical Society. The description is to repair and repainting of the L of the Asa Whiting House, sunset June 30, 2024. The reserve use would be Historic Resources Reserve at a cost of $11,000. Secondary purpose is the Historical Society's the service area. Partial repairs to the cornice and soffit of the Historical Society barn, sunset June 30, 2024. Historical Resources Reserve, $3,325. FinCom recommends favorable action in the amount of $14,325 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purposes stated in the article. 7-0 vote. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $14,325 from the Historic Resources Reserve of the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose stated in the article. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 12, Historic Commission Survey and Planning Grant Match, sponsored by the Historic Commission at an estimated cost of $15,000, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sum of money to match grant funds from the Massachusetts Historical Commission to conduct an inventory of historic places in downtown Holliston or take any action relative thereto. FinCom recommends that the town appropriate $15,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $15,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Funding of EV charging revolving fund, sponsored by the town administrator at an estimated cost of $10,000. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sum of money to provide seed funding of the EV charging revolving fund previously established by town meeting for the purpose of paying for the upfront costs of installation of EV charging units in municipal lots and partially offset the operations and maintenance of said EV charging units, for which the Select Board has adopted a fee structure for public use of EV parking in municipal lots, or take any action relative thereto. The FinCom recommends that the town appropriate $10,000 from free cash for the purposes stated in the article. 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Mr. Whitaker voted no. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $10,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, so voted. Article 14, Tree Bylaw, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws by adding a new article, XLVII, entitled Tree Protection and Preservation Bylaw as follows. The motion is move that the town vote to amend its general bylaws by adding a new article, XLVII, entitled Tree Protection and Preservation Bylaw, as presented in the warrant. It's lengthy, so I'll spare you from having a public reading of it now. I offer the following suggested explanation. The tree ordinance is a required component of the town's application to become a Tree City USA community. It builds a basic framework for regulating public shade trees within our street network as well as other town trees under the jurisdiction of the tree warden pursuant to the Shade Tree Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 87, Section 3. The implementation of regulations will need to follow this adoption of this article through a public hearing process in order to develop standards for application, tree replacement, and mitigation. Is there a second? Any discussion? Yeah, Mr. Shader?
I'm going to make probably the most petty comment ever.
What?
But there's Ken Chada, 676 Fisk, by the way, for those of you who don't know. I just want to correct one typo in what's presented here, which is under the definition of town tree. It says any tree within a public park or open space under the jurisdiction of the any town board. It should be of any town board. Just strike the word the. So I don't know if you want a motion to amend the article to strike the word the, just to make it grammatically correct.
Yeah, we'll take it as a friendly suggestion. We'll incorporate that into it.
Forgive
Knowing how
me,
friendly
but
you are,
when it's
Ken,
going
that's
in our
easy to do.
bylaws, I want it to look like we actually proofread it.
Thank you.
So
noted. Any further? Yes, sir. Yep, I'm sorry. Blurry. Keep the reading glasses on. It's all a blur.
Lixie Carey, 37 Green Street. Just a quick question. Who is our tree warden? Okay, and how's he been? And so that is solid, and it's not, because I think it used to be like sort of not always a set position, so we're going to have somebody that's going to be able to respond to this in a timely way? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, Travis. Come right down, sir.
I think most people heard the answer to the question, but just because we have people on HCAT, the question was, who is the tree warden? The answer was that it is Sean Reese, who is the DPW director, and that has been in place for a couple of years now, prior to it being a few different individuals. So the answer is that it is the DPW director. I just wanted anybody at home to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Shaw Lively, 15 Sabina Drive. My question, reading this resolution, is it all goes through the tree warden. If I need a permit to take a tree down in Stoddard Park, for instance, what if we don't have a tree warden? Who's the backup? It just says tree warden, whatever.
I should have waited for that, so then I could have answered both together. So the tree warden is part of the job description of the DPW director, which was updated a number of years ago. That position is appointed by the Holliston Select Board, so it would be the responsibility of the Holliston Select Board to have an interim in place while that position were being filled. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those will proceed to a vote. It requires a majority vote, so we'll proceed on a voice vote first. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Those opposed? That okay? Yeah, okay, that's fine, majority, that's fine. Thank you, so voted. Article 15, MBTA zoning and mapping professional services, sponsored by the Select Board at an estimated cost of $50,000. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to fund consultants and related expenses to assist in the development of zoning bylaw amendments to comply with the multifamily zoning district provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, the MBTA Communities Zoning Bylaw, or take any action relative thereto. The FinCom recommends that the town appropriate $50,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. The motion is moved that the town vote to appropriate $50,000 from free cash for the purpose stated in the article. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? As you recall, we had a description from the Board of Selectmen identifying why it was necessary for us to take some action in connection with this, even though we're not an MBTA community. Apparently, we're adjacent to one, and hence the need for action at the local level. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 16, town zoning map adoption, sponsored by the Planning Board, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw at Section 2-B, location of districts, by replacing the record maps in their entirety with the following consolidated parcel-based map entitled Town of Holliston Zoning Map. 1 inch equals 100, 1 inch equals 1,500 feet, prepared by Comprehensive Environmental Incorporated, dated September 2023. No district changes are contemplated, as this is a change to the base map itself, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is moved that the town vote to amend the zoning map as described in the warrant. Is there a second? Do we hear a second? Yes, thank you. The planning board, as is a necessity with respect to zoning articles, that it be submitted to the planning board for their recommendation to town meeting. The planning board voted in favor of sponsoring this article on September 14th, 2023, and a public hearing was advertised on October 12th, 2023. The zoning map is an integral informational layer of the town's GIS system, Simplicity Mapping by PeopleGIS, as well as being an anchor component of the town's zoning bylaw. It's used daily as a vital tool for town departments and residents, as well as professionals in the real estate and development fields. The record will reflect that I did receive today a letter from the planning board to me, care of Liz Greendale, town clerk, referencing Article 16. Dear Mr. Mayor, with respect to the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaws at Section 2B, location of districts, I would respectfully report that the planning board held a public hearing as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, on October 12, 2023. The members voted 5 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend support of the proposed article as printed in the warrant. If you should have any questions regarding the matter, board members will be present. Sincerely, Karen Apuzzo-Langton, chairperson. So that statutory requirement's been met. Any further discussion? This requires a 2/3 majority, as it's a zoning map amendment, so we'll proceed first on a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Conveyance of land of low municipal value, 15 Winthrop Street, sponsored by the Select Board, to see if the town will vote to authorize the town, acting by and through the Select Board, to convey a portion of town-owned property located at 15 Winthrop Street so as to correct long-standing lot line conflicts. All is shown on a plan on file with the town clerk's office, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to convey a portion of town property located at 15 Winthrop Street as described in the warrant, and to authorize the Select Board to take any action relative thereto. Is there a second? The explanation offered is that the property at 15 Winthrop Street has conflicted with town property lines for over 100 years due to the layout of the roads and the construction of the building that sits between Winthrop and Front Street. The property owner is working with the regulatory boards on a project, and in the process, the town and property owner are correcting the property line issue to remove the conflict. The vote required is a 2/3 majority, as it involves the transfer or conveyance of land. We'll proceed first on a voice vote. Any further discussion? Excuse me, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, so voted. Next, Article 18 is an all-alcohol liquor license sponsored by petition. I ask the petitioner to advance the,
You declared this one as unanimous, right?
Oh, yes, the prior vote was unanimous for purposes of the record. Now we have Article 18 is sponsored by a citizen's petition. I ask the petitioners to please come forward, and they'll present me with the proposed motion that they want town meeting to consider. The article is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to petition the state legislature on behalf of Central Cafe and Convenience, 92-94 Central Street, for one additional off-premise license for the sale of all alcoholic beverages. This license would be granted to the Central Cafe and Convenience, who is currently operating under a wine and malt beverages license, or take any action relative thereto. As town meeting may know, or for those who are new to town meeting tonight, there's a provision in the Mass General Laws that allows petitions to be submitted by citizen petition once they obtain the requisite number of signatures to allow them to advance the petition. The Select Board is required to accept that petition. They are free to speak in favor or opposed to it, but it's traditionally advanced by the petitioner. So the petition's been requested to present to us the motion, so they will read their motion. If there's a second, it'll be open for debate. Ma'am, just please identify yourself, tell us who you are, and if you have a motion to make, advance, and if it's in writing, send it up to us when you're ready, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
So hi, my name is Rebecca. I'm the daughter of Ramses.
I'm sorry, Rebecca, what's your last name? Where do you reside?
Rebecca Azir. I'm a resident of Millis.
Okay, as with the previous speaker, in order to allow Rebecca to address town meeting, I'd need a We already did it? Oh, so voted. Go right ahead, Rebecca. Sorry for the delay. Go right ahead.
You're good.
Don't feel unwelcome by that comment by me. Go right ahead.
So I'm the daughter of Ramses Azir. He's the owner of Central Cafe and Convenience. We're applying to upgrade our beer and wine license to a full liquor license. So there are a couple of reasons why we wanted to pursue it. At the moment, nearly every other store in town is selling with a full liquor license, which has led to an overall decrease in our beer and wine sales over the last few years since we lack the one-stop shop ability. There's also many recent products that are categorized as spirits, which means we're not allowed to carry them in our store. There's the common ones, the high noons, which are in very high demand, and they contain very low alcohol content, but they don't fall under our license. So we often have customers walking out of the store empty-handed because they're not able to get those at our store. We've also taken a lot of pride in being an affordable and accessible place for the people of Holliston to do their shopping. Without a liquor license, there is a lack of competitive pricing market throughout the town for these liquor products. On average, we sell our beer and wine items at a lower price than the other stores throughout the town. So with access to a liquor license, we would love to continue providing additional products at a more reasonable price to our customers. Finally, the expenses of running the store have continued to increase while our business has decreased over the years. Not only are we missing out on the sales of liquor-containing products, but with the loss of our ice cream business to the new ice cream store in the building, our income has drastically been impacted. And this store has been a part of our family for nearly 25 years, over a decade of which has included beer and wine. Throughout that time, we have watched a lot of your kids grow through like middle school, high school, gone to college. We've seen some of you have kids of your own. So we care about our community and everyone that is a part of it, which is why our store has always abided by the rules and regulation of the beer and wine retailers. We have never been ticketed by the ABCC for selling to minors. So the store has supported my parents in raising both me and my brother for many years, and we would love to keep this in the community, and this license would allow us to continue my parents' hard work for this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Travis, you can make the motion orally and then reduce it to writing and pass it up to us if that's okay with you.
All right, so I move to authorize the Select Board to petition the state legislator on behalf of Central Cafe and Convenience, 9294 Central Street, for one additional off-premise license for the sale of alcoholic beverages.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that in writing. It's open. Topic's open for discussion. Anybody wish to be heard? Yes, sir. Got it? Yeah, Jay, look at it, make sure it's okay. Thanks.
My name's Chris D'Amato, 164 Prentice Street. I just wanted to make this brief and a quick comment. I've personally been in their store and seen someone walk in, ask for hard alcohol, they could not provide it, and they walked out to the store down the street. I just don't think that's a fair practice of a free market, so that's all.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that motion was reviewed and approved by town council, so it's properly before town meeting. Any further discussion? Okay, this requires a majority vote. We'll do it by voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Congratulations. Okay, before we move to Article 19, the last article of the evening, I just have a few quick comments to share. One, I want to welcome Kevin Sanderson, our Assistant Town Clerk, who's here with Liz tonight. His first town meeting. Yep, thank you. And I want to thank Jay Talaman, our Town Council, and Steve Chaplin from his office, who didn't have to have a whole lot of input here this evening, but what input they offered was helpful. But as you know from prior town meetings, that Travis Ahern and Town Council worked diligently to prepare the warrant and the motions and all the background information that's presented to you here this evening. While I present it here, I actually do very little in advance of town meeting. They do the work, and I just present their product. So I want to thank them for the work that they've done. It's most appreciative. And I I want to note that I suspect the viewing at home that Jackie and Henry are not here this evening. Delica, they're usually seated over there, and I count on them and their involvement. And Mary Greendale is usually seated right down here. I hope that they're all okay, but I just note their absence tonight here at town meeting. So thank you. Let's advance, if we can, then to last article of the evening, citizens petition with respect to Lowland Street, following the similar process to the matter that we just considered and dealt with. This is a citizens petition. It is to see if the town will vote to advise the select board that the citizens of Holliston do not support the installation of a locking gate, pipe gate, or any barrier intended to restrict vehicular traffic in any capacity at any point along Lowland Street as enforcement of the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Woodland Street, and that the citizens of Holliston do support the installation of signs and police patrol as enforcement of the heavy commercial exclusion on Woodland Street. I'll be entertaining a motion. I'll have town meeting be mindful of the fact that the citizens petition is included as a right to be included and be considered by town meeting. It is advisory in nature. The select board has, by statutory authority, the ability to control our roads and highways and speeds and various things subject to state controls in certain aspects of it. So this is non-binding in nature, but it could be accepted as an expression of the sentiment this town meeting and given whatever weight, if it's advanced, the select board decides to give to it. So I'd call on the citizens who have advanced the petition to present us with a motion, and if it's seconded, we'll have discussion on it. So I call on the citizens who have advanced this to step forward, please. Let's show my memory hasn't completely failed, Ms. Chipman. Just identify yourself first, please. Thank you.
My name's Ann Chipman, 116 Stagecoach Road. I'd like to offer some background information for people in the audience.
I'm sorry, ma'am, could you give us a motion first? Do you have a motion?
Can I just read it off the warrant?
Sure. And have somebody help you, or you can just reduce it to writing, if you will.
So the motion is to see if the town will vote to advise the select board that the citizens of Holliston do not support the installation of a locking pipe gate or any barrier intended to restrict vehicular traffic in any capacity at any point along Lowland Street as enforcement of the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Woodland Street, and that the citizens of Holliston do support the installation of signs and police patrol as enforcement of the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Woodland Street.
Is there a second? Okay, that's before us, ma'am. We can accept it in that fashion. You can just pass it up to us, a copy of what you did. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to offer some background information for people in the audience that may not be familiar with the circumstances prompting this petition. So for years, residents along the streets of Woodland, Lowland, Regal, and Norland have expressed concern to town administration about commercial traffic from the Lowland Industrial Park negatively impacting their neighborhood. The town heard the residents' concerns and worked with Mass DOT to obtain a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion along Woodland Street, which was finalized in May of '21. What the commercial vehicle exclusion means is that any vehicle over 2.5 tons that is not conducting business along Woodland is excluded from using it. If a commercial vehicle is on Woodland Street for the purpose of doing business with a school, another business, or a resident, they can legally be there. If a commercial vehicle is using Woodland as a cut-through from Washington to Central, or vice versa, they are violating the exclusion. I have included the letter from the Mass DOT approving the exclusion in that packet of information you may have gotten at the door. It was necessary for me to file this citizens petition because the residents on those streets are now concerned that commercial vehicles are ignoring the recently implemented Woodland Street exclusion, and their neighborhood again is being negatively impacted. At the Select Board's meeting on June 5th, the Select Board decided to close Lowland Street to commercial vehicles with a barrier of some sort. The barrier would be located around 56 Lowland Street at the rail trail. In the packet I handed out, there's a map in there that was actually developed by the town that shows you the location. Shortly thereafter, the board commissioned a traffic engineering firm to make recommendations on what type of barrier should be installed at the rail trail. The engineering firm came back and said there was no good option to only stop commercial vehicles, so to stop commercial vehicles traveling Lowland, Lowland would need to be shut down to all through traffic. So that's why I'm here tonight. It was necessary for me to file this so that the Holliston community could have an opportunity to express their thoughts on the Select Board's decision to close Lowland Street. So tonight, I'm asking you to vote yes on Article 19. And there are many reasons I'm asking you for this tonight. The reasons include recent improved signage, some comments from the town's DPW and public safety, as well as data from a recent Holliston Police Department traffic study, which supports that commercial traffic at the proposed barrier location is only 3.82%. Regarding the improved signage, the traffic engineering firm commissioned by the Select Board also looked at the existing signage in and around the park for its effectiveness in advising commercial vehicle drivers about the woodland exclusion. The traffic engineering firm noted the signage was deficient and made recommendations for improved signage so the woodland exclusion would be clearer to commercial vehicle drivers. These new signs just went up in September. So for 2 years, we've had inadequate signage to direct commercial vehicle drivers away from Lowland Street. It is anticipated that the improved signage may reduce the commercial traffic along Woodland, thereby reducing any negative impact to neighbors in the area. I'd like to ask that we give these signs an opportunity to work and move commercial traffic away from Woodland. The improved signage may give residents in the Woodland area a better outcome than closing Lowland would. In June, personnel from the DPW and public safety met with Mr. Ahern to discuss the Lowland closing. I included in the packet Mr. Ahern's notes from that meeting. And you'll notice that under item number 2, comment A, from the DPW and public safety, they note their concern that if a commercial vehicle approaches the proposed barrier at Lowland from the Woodland side, they will not be able to progress. Likely what they will do is they'll approach the barrier, they will reverse as far back as necessary, and then they'll take the left onto Regal, they'll follow it around through Norland and back out onto Woodland. So for the Regal Norland residents, if a commercial vehicle enters Lowland from Woodland, it would actually be better for them if there wasn't a barrier there, because the commercial vehicle could just continue along Lowland and not have to enter their neighborhood. And, you know, this wouldn't just be commercial vehicles either. They would see increased traffic from commuters that will also come across that barrier, take the left onto Regal, travel Norland, and out Woodland. Comment B from the DPW and public safety notes that the opposite end of Lowland and Fisk is going to take the burden of the vehicle traffic that does not exit by Whitney. So in this case, closing Lowland at the rail trail may appease the residents at the Woodland end, but it will come at the expense of the residents at the Fisk end. The traffic will now be rerouted in their direction, and that is not fair. Comment C from the DPW and public safety notes that private property, especially the business located at 56 Lowland, may be impacted because commercial and commuter vehicles approaching the barrier from Lowland northbound, which is heading out of the park, will come to the barrier. They're going to need to turn around and will likely use the business at 56 Lowland's, their parking lot, to do so. And to add, there is actually commercial land for sale directly across from 56 Lowland. And once that land is purchased and developed, it is likely vehicles will turn around in their parking lot as well. But What I consider the most compelling reason not to close Lowland Street is the data from a recent Holliston Police Department traffic study. The study equipment was placed close to the location of the proposed barrier, and I included the traffic study results and the packets in the handout. The traffic study looked at a 5-day window from Tuesday, May 23rd to Saturday, May 27th. It also looked at like Sunday, May 28th through May 30th, but I didn't include that data because that Monday was Memorial Day, and I didn't think it would give a fair representation of a typical week. But the study recorded a total of 9,147 trips along Lowland Street and past the location of the proposed barrier. Of those 9,147 trips, 8,798 of them were Class 1, 2, and 3 vehicles, which are motorcycles, passenger vehicles, and passenger pickups. Only 349 were Class 4 through 12 vehicles, which are buses and commercial vehicles. And I want to be very clear that when the data says 349 commercial vehicles, that doesn't mean that 349 commercial vehicles are violating the Woodland Street exclusion. For example, if a landscaping rack body vehicle is working on Norland, and they finish up their work and they head out Regal, and then they take the left onto Lowland, that trip is going to be captured in this study, but that driver was not violating the Woodland exclusion. If a FedEx truck delivered to a resident on Fisk and then cut through Lowland for their next stop at Woodland, that trip is going to be captured in this study, but that driver was not violating the Woodland Street exclusion. So most importantly, what this study clearly indicates is that only 3.82% of the traffic that passed the study equipment was commercial. So at the location where the select board wants to close Lowland to commercial vehicles, only 3.82% of that traffic is commercial. 3.82%. The other 96.18% of that traffic is motorcycles and passenger vehicles. These are Holliston residents and others commuting back and forth to work, getting their kids to school, getting their kids to daycare, pretty much back and forth to wherever they need to be. This is their commuting route. If the town closes Lowland Street at the rail trail, these commuting residents and others will be forced to find alternative commuting routes. Those 8,798 trips over the 5-day study translates into 749 trips per day. The traffic burden of these 749 trips will be shifted throughout town to other streets and the already congested downtown. And I know there's residents here tonight that will probably speak about how the commute will never negatively impact them, so I'm not going to speak on that, but my purpose was really, I just wanted to bring to your attention tonight the study results and point out how unwarranted it is to close a heavily traveled commuter public road for the purpose of impeding commercial traffic when the data shows that only 3.82% of the traffic. I have to believe that you would agree that this makes no sense. So what I'd like to suggest is that we let the other 96.18% of Holliston's commuting residents continue to use Lowland as they should. With 1,749 daily trips, Lowland Street is clearly an important commuter route. So again, I'm asking you to vote yes on Article 19 and keep Lowland Street for the use open for the use and convenience of all residents.
Sure, John.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Folks, just listening to the petitioner's information, I will not get into the details of some of the misstatements. I respect the petitioner's ability to come forth under stressful circumstances and explain their position. I just wanted to clear up one very important point that the petitioner made, which is that she stated that there was a vote taken by this board on June 5th to close Lowland. That's factually inaccurate. There was no vote. It would be illegal to have a vote without a public hearing. We've been saying that throughout the evening. There was a lot of discussion on the June 5th meeting. I just looked at the meeting minutes. But there was a consensus within the board to further study this very complex issue. And I just want folks here to know this evening to know no such action was taken. Please take the remarks made in the context that a petitioner would ordinarily make. Our board has gone through extreme measures to ensure that civility, as the moderator said earlier, reigns. I respect the entire process, but I think as a voter and a warrant, or somebody who's considering this warrant article, you should be informed. No vote's been taken. This is a wide open, progressive process. Thank you.
Further discussion? Ma'am? No. No, you yield to her, and I'll call on you again. I'll give you a chance to respond. Go ahead, ma'am. Liz Tyler, yes. Hi, Liz.
Dr. Liz Tyler, 17 New Orleans Street. Yes, I live in that neighborhood. I want you to know there have been numerous misfacts that have been stated. You need to know the facts, and I ask you to look at the facts. I want you to think of your neighborhood, and then think of our neighborhood, Norland, Regal, Woodland, Lowland. Our neighborhood where children ride their bicycles, parents push their strollers, people walk their dogs, and people walk to the rail trail. Think, if there were a state of Massachusetts heavy commercial vehicle exclusion, no big trucks over 2.5 tons on a road by or near your home, would you want that enforced so that you could walk safely and did not constantly hear or see big trucks? What would you think if residents who do not live in your neighborhood signed a petition that you should just live with the present situation, the big trucks in your neighborhood? They are saying to us, you do not need any additional enforcement. Signs, which the McMahon report clearly said people do not pay attention to, and police enforcement are sufficient. This petition says you cannot do anything more. No islands, no speed bumps, no chicanes, no extended curves to stop big trucks. They want to control how the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion is enforced in our neighborhood. The petitioners want you to think that this is about closing Lowland Street. It is not. Read the last 2 lines of the petition and see that they want to limit the enforcement of the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. This petition requests that you leave the problem in our neighborhood, but we are asking you to help us solve our truck problem and let the select board choose an engineered solution. Not one of the signers of this petition lives in our neighborhood. Not one of them has to deal with the trucks. Not one. So why should the residents who live in the Stagecoach Road area, in a nice secluded area over 2 miles away from our neighborhood, yes, More than half of the petitioners live in that neighborhood. Why should they control the way a state heavy commercial vehicle exclusion is enforced in our neighborhood? It's our neighborhood. We're just asking that the law be enforced. We are not saying shut down Lowland Street. That was a proposal, and yes, it was a proposal that was enforced by McMahon, but it was a proposal. And that's not what we're asking. We're asking you to help us protect our neighborhood. And before any road can be closed, there has to be a public hearing. So this is a lot of misinformation. I'm asking you to vote with our neighborhood. I live there. I see the trucks. I hear the trucks. I know the safety problem. I'm asking you to vote with our neighborhood and to vote no on this article.
Ms. Chipman, did you want to be heard again? Yeah, I thought so. Then, ma'am, I'll get you next. Thank you.
I just would like to respond to Mr. Cronin's comments. In my statement, I didn't say that the board voted. I said that they decided. And when I was actually watching the video of the meeting minutes, Mr. Cronin and Mrs. Hine were very much for it. And Mrs. Hine's exact words were, it was time to take bold steps. So I didn't say that they had voted, but they pretty much said that they wanted the exclusion, which is why they had Mr. Ahern speak to the police and the DPW to find out the best process for implementing the exclusion. And it's why they commissioned McMahon Associates to tell them what kind of barrier would be the best barrier. So they didn't vote, but I'm telling you right now, they decided to close Lowland.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Who's that guy over on the right? I don't know. Okay.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Baroud. I live at 21 Lowland Street with my husband and 2 children. I walk, I push a stroller, I ride bikes with my family almost daily right along Lowland Street. It does not feel safe when an 18-wheeler passes by us and we have to hop off the road to make room. Signs and education in the neighborhood have not worked yet. I went door to door with 2 other neighbors getting input and feedback about the truck issue that we deal with on a daily basis. Here is a small sample of comments from those conversations. 1, this is a huge problem, but the select board will never do the right thing. The road should be closed. 2, I was born on Washington Street. I'm a townie. This is a huge problem and something should be done, but we are always ignored in this neighborhood. We just don't matter. 3, who would think that living on a street with the schools, a truck exclusion, and a safe routes to school, that this would be happening? Our road is very unsafe. 4, I walk from Washington Street to Woodland to Lowland to use the rail trail, and being on Lowland is so unsafe. Our neighborhood is unsafe. The cut-through trucks and speeding traffic should not be here. The select board needs to do something about this. This is our neighborhood. 5, I wish the road could stay open, but truck drivers will not and do not make the right decisions in the moment. I see them daily cutting through our neighborhood. 6, I really wish they could solve this. I too have had wires pulled off my house from the trucks. The best thing that has happened is the exclusion, but then they never enforce it. Of course I agree to closing the road. Thank you for hearing the concerns of the folks in our neighborhood tonight. Please vote no on this article and allow the conversation to simply continue with all possibilities available in solving this problem.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, my name is Bill Duffy. I live at 134 Fish Street. First time I've talked before town meeting.
Well, I'm glad you made the decision tonight, Mr. Duffy, to address town meeting. Go right ahead.
You want to talk about traffic? Talk about Fish Street. It's a disaster. The closing off Bullard Street, downtown, this engineering firm that created the lights downtown, I have no confidence in them. If I want to go south of Holliston Center, I avoid Holliston Center at all costs. I go down, I cut through Lowland Street, I go down to Woodland Street, through High Street, that way. If I'm going to Millis, I go the other way to avoid the town. I understand the frustration that these people have. However, I've been living with it for 40 years. The trucks go flying by. So bad that we've had the DPW out to patch the road from holes they've put in it, so that when they drive by, you think a sonic boom's going off. What I would, and I've listened to this 300 and some odd trucks that are violating this, 97% don't. I hear our Holliston Police Department does a phenomenal job, but they can only give $35 tickets. We are very lucky in Massachusetts. We have the finest state police department in the country. They have a state police truck team. And when they come out, they go over the entire truck when they pull it over. They go through the log. They fine trucks hundreds to thousands of dollars for violations, and they can impound the vehicle right then and there. And if you don't think that the other truck drivers don't hear about this, as soon as the state police team shows up, they're on the phone warning the truckers not to go there. We have the finest state police force in the country. Let's use them to supplement the Holliston police. And I guarantee you, with the state police team out there for a week or two, your problem will go away. I urge you to vote yes on this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Cronin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Very briefly to Mr. Duffy's, the previous speaker's remarks. We have had the state police truck team out multiple times. They help train and augment Holliston PD enforcement. So we have made use of that resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brumber, twice in one night. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Mike Brumber, 34 Prospect Street. From my understanding, Lowland Street is, I think, if the DPW is here, it's a 60-foot wide road. How much of that road are we using right now? The lady's worried about her kids. She just moved into the neighborhood. I know her. I don't know her name. She's got a legitimate problem. We all have a problem down there. Us as industrial owners, us as industrial land owners, we buy industrial land for a reason. Just because the roads aren't big enough for our trucks and you humans, we have to work with each other. We don't have to have some single person saying that this all doesn't work and we're going to throw up a gate. If you think throwing up a gate is what we can come up with in the year 2024, then you got some issues. There is land there on everybody's property that you can take, and my land is there too to take. That road is 60 feet wide. Put 2 sidewalks in, widen the road. Why isn't that brought up at the town meeting? You want to spend $250,000 on lights? Spend $250,000 on making the road usable for the people and the industrial people. Make it work for everybody. We can't do that in this society? That's sad. Vote yes, please.
Mr. Delica, you're up.
Mark Delica, 305 Washington Street. I also have an office and, unfortunately, trucks on Woodland Street, because Woodland Street, from one side of the school to the other, is industrial. So when they shut down the industrial road, what they did was grandfather everybody that has business there, Holliston Oil. They sell oil to trucks day in and day out, or they used to. It's pretty bad now. When the bridge opens back up again, those trucks are legal to go down there. Out of the, I don't remember the count of police that pulled over the industrial trucks. I think it was 84 a day, whatever it was a day. I wonder how many of those were legally to use. I know they know me, and I get pulled over all the time. And they say, well, you know, we know you can be there, but you're on film because somebody's filming you. We have to stop, so just stop and keep going. But we bought property in an industrial zone to be legal. And then when they shut us down, we're still legal, but it kind of, you know, goes against everybody because they said we still see trucks. You're going to see trucks. There's industrial buildings from Mill Pond to the other side of the school. Trucks go there every day, and they're going to keep going there every day. And when you come down Lowland Street, it's safer when I'm in the backhoe to go down Woodland when the bridge is open and go down Lowland Street to St. Mary's Cemetery. The sooner you get off a main road with a machine, the safer it is for everybody. That's Lowland Street. If I'm on Washington Street going down to my son's house or to the center of town, I could be going 30 miles an hour and they're going to pass you because they don't want to get stuck behind a machine. So what I try to do is get off the road. So by shutting all these roads down, it just makes it more unsafe in my estimation. And when Woodland Street Bridge opens up, those trucks are coming back on Woodland Street. So I just want to let everybody know my feeling.
Thank you. Mr. Rodenheiser, that prior vote allowing you to address us carries throughout the whole evening, okay? Yeah.
Earlier this evening, we saw...
Just for the record, to tell the folks, in case we get some late...
Andy Rodenheiser, Medway resident.
Thank you.
Property owner at 325 Hopping Brook Road. Former property owner at Whitney Street, 71 in Holliston. And I moved out of that park because of all of the problems and the enforcement issues, and you know, I couldn't necessarily control all the vehicles where they all went at any time. You know, you hire a new person, and you know, since then the truck restriction has been placed on there, so it was obvious. But you know, I've known for years that you know this problem has existed. But I would also caution the town meeting that earlier we heard a report about the strategic plan and you know, how that integrates with the master plan. I'm not clear on. I haven't, you know, followed that issue specifically. But one of the items was, you know, the fiscal policy and the concern that the town has about maintaining revenues. And the tax rates that commercial businesses are paying, you know, they're the same rates, but you don't get the associated costs. And so the valuations that get placed on these buildings are calculated in different ways, and they assess you, you know, based on its highest best use. And when you have fallow property because it's an undesirable place to be, or that it's known that you're not welcome there, it puts a damper on your ability to generate the maximum amount of revenue you can. And that's how you're going to pay for your bridges or your sidewalks or your new school. I mean, you need to be careful of the unintended consequences when you are, you know, doing these things. I look at Holliston and what's happened with some of this traffic policy. It seems like they're like pockets of problems, and you address them in a specific way, but they're all connected. And you know, when you are just blocking off a street, you're blocking off arterial flow, you know, during different times. My wife happens to be commuting to the Dancing Arts Center, I don't know, 3 times a week, I think.
and it would be great if the bridge was in, you know, but, you know, she has to go through downtown, and you know, sometimes she may cut down through Central Street and around, but, you know, that kind of behavior is what the citizens need and want, but when you take it away, you might regret it. So I'm in favor of this, even though I don't have a vote.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
My name's Keith Bailey. I live at 17 Lowland. I'm an eyewitness to every incident in the last 5 years where we've had a dangerous situation, property damage. I've seen it all. And one thing that wasn't mentioned tonight is that there are two parts to Lowland. There's a residential part and there's an industrial park part. And Michael Brumber was right when he said the streets are wide in the industrial park. I've measured them at a bunch of locations, and they're about 35 feet wide. The residential section is 21 feet wide. So the suggestion tonight is to take two 8.5-foot wide tractor trailers with just 2 feet in between them so the drivers can shake hands as they go by each other. That's 19 feet. And then you have 1 foot margin of error on the sides. In a street that has a 65-home community spilling out, in and out, to the bike path and the road. And I can tell you I've seen 200 times where kids dive for the bushes as soon as the 10-wheelers come by. And one of the biggest offenders of that just spoke a few minutes ago. The 10-wheelers have run rampant through this neighborhood with jake brakes and loud exhaust systems to the point where the windows rattle. And it has been done intentionally to drive us out. The other thing that has happened, and I witnessed the whole thing, is a 72-foot tractor trailer came through one day. And I was in my backyard, and it caught my attention because it sounded like some kids in the neighborhood lighting firecrackers off. And I go, oh, great, just like the old times. It wasn't firecrackers. The corner of the truck caught residential level poles, hooked them, dragged it out of Regal, all the way down to Woodland, around the corner, and all the way down Lowland and around the corner. It was 300 feet of fiber optic cable that has a tensile strength of over 100 pounds. On another night, a truck went by in the same area and caught that same kind of cable. And if you have FiOS, you have a box called an ONT, optical network termination. It's attached to that cable. That box went through my neighbor's basement at truck speed because it wrapped around a pole, ripped through their basement, and got caught. And if anybody was in its way, they would have been severely damaged. In 3 consecutive days, the trucks hit my wires connecting to my house. Day 1, ripped out. Day 2, even worse. Day 3, even worse. The damage was so bad to the Verizon infrastructure that they had to send out their engineering team. Then they had to send out the construction team. Then they had to send out an installation team to the pole, and then another guy to bring it back into my house. So I see every day where this is a mutually exclusive relationship with these trucks. The CDL trucks are 8.5 feet wide, and I gave you the dimensions of my street. There's no elasticity there. It's either 2 trucks in the road and no people, they dive in the bushes, or the kids are able to cross it. They're not able to move down that street. So I see mothers with strollers. I see mothers with kids. I see mothers with stroller and kids and dogs. They can't live within a safety margin of 1 foot. We don't have 35 feet like they're all talking about in the industrial park. This is a completely different infrastructure with low wires, narrow streets, and nowhere to go. They'd have to tear down all the oak trees, all the ancient oaks on the street, and take down all our maple trees to give it another foot. And if we have sidewalks in there, which are building for one kid who's disabled, you only get another inch, you only get another 1.5 feet of margin. So you've got an 18-wheeler truck tire right here, and when you're in the center of the sidewalk, you're walking right here. Because the sidewalk...
Yeah, use the microphone, sir, will you, so they can pick you up at home. Thank you.
Sidewalk, excuse me, sorry.
That's okay.
They could probably still hear me, though, I bet. The sidewalk shares the road edge as its edge. Unlike a Newton or a Needham, where you have a street, a granite curb, a grass berm, and then the sidewalk. That's not what we're talking about here. So I've heard so much disinformation about this night. We're frustrated. We need a fix, and we don't want to be prohibited from exploring all options. We've been working with the select board. We have been extremely reasonable with them. They've listened to us, we've listened to them. We're trying to find a solution. We're not looking for a cul-de-sac. We're not talking about our convenience. We're talking about the safety of our kids. I got 2 grandchildren in this house. I got 2 more next door. All of them are under 6 years old. They break loose, and they're done because people fly down that street. So I'm asking you to vote no, simply to let us continue working with the select board and anyone else who wants to participate in this and find a solution. Our street is not like the industrial park. They shouldn't share the same name. And we've been working on that too, but we've got no positive feedback on that. They shouldn't be called our street should not be called Lowland. It wasn't sold off to the industrial park. It's not industrial property. So let's make sure we're all straight on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vote no.
For 2 more. I'm going to entertain 2 more speakers, and that would likely be it, but we'll see.
Bill Rodenheiser, 213 Central Street at the corner of Franklin. I'm not sure as far as disinformation goes. I think that if I'm not mistaken, all wires are supposed to be at a certain height, whether they're residential or industrial. And from what I understand, some of that was resolved, I think actually by Tom Chipman, went out and actually contacted the utilities, and if I'm not mistaken, for free, communicated with those people and got the stuff straightened out. So that's kind of business trying to help and work with the community. As far as the idea of trucks and 18-wheelers, I think there's signs there now, and somebody spoke effectively about enforcement and how maybe that could be done a little bit better, but it just doesn't seem to be authentic to say that that's still something that's going on. It's a valuable cut-through, and if something such as a gate is even contemplated, all of the other people that try to cut through there, I mean, the police statistics were very clear on how many trucks are actually going through there. It's a valuable cut-through area. I mean, I live on the corner of Central and Franklin, and it's turned into sort of a speedway, you know, and I'd like it to be something other than what it is when I purchased it. Yeah, it'd be great if it was one way. It'd be great if it wasn't what it is. I mean, everybody that bought there. They knew it was an industrial park. It's there. And if anything, it's already gotten better. And I don't think anybody's trying to say that they don't want to try to make it better. I mean, Tom Chipman's a pretty good example of that. He's tried to make it better. He's tried to go help the people. I think we need to get serious about things like the bridge that's closed and like what's going on with that. I mean, everybody now, Central Street is backed all the way up every single day now. I mean, you can't even, people cut through Medway, they come down Norfolk, and then they race down my street. Well, that's just the way it is now, right? But then they're trying to get out to Central. They can't cut down through Woodland because the bridge is out. I mean, it seems like there should be an emergency repair done. Now, as far as traffic mitigation goes, and being more thoughtful about it, I mean, at the end of Franklin Street, I don't know how this happened, but they put these little cones up like they did up by the high school. And if anybody's traveled down there, in terms of thinking through what we're doing, if somebody comes down Norfolk Street and wants to try to take that right onto Franklin, if somebody's queued up to take a left, it's like you're going to get run over. There's not enough room there for somebody to take the... Now, I'm sure it's somebody trying to be thoughtful about making people slow down on my street, which I appreciate, but I mean, let's be serious. There's going to be an accident there. So I encourage everybody to vote yes, because we need to be able to take management of things in a different manner.
Ma'am, I'm going to allow another speaker over here, ma'am. Go right ahead. Pam, where did Pam go, who was over here on the left? Back to her seat? Okay. You're welcome. Mr. Chipman, I'll call on you next. Go ahead, ma'am. Identify yourself, please.
Good evening. My name is Karen Apuzzo Langton. I live at 100 Woodland Street, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm sitting in my seat, and I still hear the same thing over and over again. Everyone else's convenience is more important than our safety. Everyone else's speed is more important than our safety. I've lived at the property for 23 years. I don't understand this conversation of you knew it was an industrial park. You know, there used to be people in our society that were here that never had rights, but that has changed. This is 2023, and for the sum of the people that have stood up at this podium and have actually gloated over the fact that they cut through, we had someone stand here and say that they violate the truck exclusion. And you clapped. I'm sorry, but you're not taking our situation seriously. Yes, I am the person that's I've had electrical wires pulled down twice, and I've had communication wires pulled down 3 times. We run a business in that house. We have lost 20 some odd days of work because a truck is cutting through, and we then suffer for that cut through. There is a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Woodland Street. We approached the select board the final time that this happened because we were fed up with it. We have suffered economic loss. We have suffered the loss of clients. And that's just the business side, which seems to be what this body is mostly interested in, the business side. However, we raise families there as well. We raise our children. We put them through these school systems. We are your neighbors. And my goodness, you don't treat us like that. There could be a little ounce of compassion in this room, just a little one, for what we are going through. Every single neighborhood deserves the right to try to solve a problem and to not be snickered at and to not be chastised and to not be threatened. So I ask you for just 2 seconds to walk in our shoes and treat us like we're human beings, because that is what we are. We are your neighbors. And all we did was go to the select board and ask for help. That's all we did. McMahon suggested closing the road. Nobody voted on it. Nobody. And you're sitting here today and you're telling us that all we ever get is, excuse me, but thoughts and prayers. That's all you're going to give us. The police do what they can. That's what they've told us. The signage doesn't work. The commercial drivers use passenger GPS, so the commercial truck exclusion does not appear on their GPS. They would have to pay for a commercial exclusion. I know you're not going to vote with us tonight. It's already clear in this room, the wave that's going here. We get it. But next time you need help, I'd like you to think about what exactly it is that we have been through and what we have asked for, and we came to you and we spoke to you at meetings. We've spoken to you respectfully, and we've asked for a little respect back. Thank you so much for being my neighbors in Holliston.
Mr.
Please
Chipman, I'm
vote
going to give you the last word. Thank you.
Tom Chipman, 116 Stagecoach Road and 53 Jeffrey Ave. I just want to let you know, we do respect everybody here. When I first heard about what was going on, it's been a couple months, and I heard about the shutting of the road, I went to the first select board's meeting, and I heard everybody out, and Mrs. Langton spoke the same exact language tonight you just heard. And she was very concerned. Another gentleman here, his wires were getting ripped down. We have code to follow when we do electric work. We have a code book that everybody follows. I follow it. National Grid follows it. Verizon follows it. The wires have to be over 18 feet, 18 feet and up. I went to measure the wires. The wires were almost at 18 feet. We talked to the power company. They came out, looked at it. They were right. The pole sagging. They raised the wires up on a new pole. They straightened that issue out. We were concerned. We feel as though we straightened out that mess in that neighborhood. Liz Tyler, you're a very nice lady. I respect you. Did you come to our neighborhood and ask?
Mr. Chairman, just address your comments to me, please.
Okay, yeah. So again, going to back, did anybody come to the industrial park and ask us how we felt about the business? Not one business person was asked or spoken to about this whole matter. Nobody knew that the road was attempting to be shut down. So again, we do feel for everybody. This isn't something to laugh at. It's not a laughing matter. And your street right now is the same road that starts from Woodland Street to Fifth Street. It's the same size road. You have setbacks. That road might be 21 feet in front of your house. Do your homework. That road is actually, you got setbacks on either side for sidewalks and growth. So it might be a little slimmer one end, but it's the same road from A to B. That's it.
Okay, sir. So you want to talk? I'll make an exception. I thought we were done, but I'm going to give you a last chance to speak. You're welcome. We'll proceed to a vote after this gentleman's concluded his comments. Thank you. No, go ahead.
Alexander Lucier, 111 Regal Street. A lot of people, I don't think they understand what the scope of this problem really is. I live on Regal Street. I don't want to see a gate there, to be honest with you. I don't want to see a gate there, but something has to get done. Many times, let's say Woodland Street is open. You go exit Regal Street, you have a tractor-trailer truck trying to come in, and I'm already at the intersection waiting to go out. Can you imagine what happens when two tractor-trailer trucks, one's trying to come in and one's trying to exit? What's going to happen? They're going to be backing up. There's going to be a little war going on. If you have a gate there, I'm not a fan for that. If the guy's going to pull up to that gate, he's going to be pissed. He's going to back up, and he's going to go right down Regal Street as fast as he can and come right, because he's going to be mad, and down Norland Street. We have a rail trail there. That rail trail has people going back and forth, bicycles riding really fast, going there. The lights that are there are not the best because sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work, and it's a very shaded area. When I go there, I always slow down because kids on their bikes just go straight through. Do you think a tractor-trailer truck or a box truck trying to exit the park is going to be able to stop in time? Because some of those people that are following me when I want to turn on Regal Street don't realize my directional is for Regal Street, not Woodland, and they're trying to go right up on my butt. So this is a safety issue. There needs to be lights on Whitney Street. And as far as that road curvature goes, what's going on with Route 9 and Southborough when you're coming in towards Boston? There's a sign telling you that there's a red light or not a red light up the street. How come we can't do something like that? Those lights need to be put into place starting now because that's only going to get busier. So the longer you wait, the more of an issue it's going to be. And I just have one question. Is a speed limit sign a suggestion?
Thank you. We're going to proceed to a vote. It requires a majority vote. I'll just basically restate it because the debate has been lengthy, and I thank you all for your patience. I understand it's late, it's our last article, but I'm disinclined to prohibit people from speaking on a matter as important as this is to them, so I thank you for your patience with the way I handled this article. The motion is to see if the town will vote to advise the select board that the citizens of Holliston do not support the installation of a locking pipe gate or any barrier intended to restrict vehicular traffic in any capacity at any point along Lowland Street as enforcement of the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Woodland Street, and that the citizens of Holliston do not support the installation of signs and police patrol, support the installation of signs and police patrol as enforcement of the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Woodland Street. We'll first proceed to a voice vote, and if I have any doubt, we'll proceed to a hand count, but let's proceed as follows. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. That's not clear to me. I think we're going to go to a hand count. It was close enough so that I'm not, some were loud, but it may be a few voices shouting a little louder. So if we can, all those in favor of the motion, please raise their hand. You agree?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Hard to tell. Yeah. Keep them up to you till the clerk lets you know that we're done. Thank you.
What?
They speak softly when they come up, don't they? Jesus.
It's okay.
These aren't secret votes, so speak
they're
up
not
loudly for us, will you?
35? $25. What? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Okay, that's it. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. Keep your hands up. Both agreed?
What? Peg? 7. Yes, we both agree.
Yeah, okay.
Seven? Magic number. 14. $24.
One more to check in, right? Yeah.
Seven? Oh, that's so funny. No, they're not sitting down, so no one counted them. I don't know if anybody's counted them. Those people that are standing did not get counted because they weren't in
If they
section.
didn't raise their hand, it's not going to be close anyway.
Yeah, no, we don't need to worry about it, thank you.
Yeah. Huh? Okay. On purpose? Yeah, well, because you're being advised, right? Okay, that vote is, the motion prevails 126 in favor, 59 opposed. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye. Thank you all, and good evening to you folks and at home. Thank you.